Hello and welcome back to my channel What If Deku 2.0. Join us as we delve into the realms of fanfiction and fantasy, bringing you the best stories and discussions. Today, we're kicking off part 5 of our series, What If Deku Received One for All and Had Harem? If you enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more content in the future. The author of this story is JTZ29 from FanfictionNet. All the relevant links are in the description. Feel free to say hello to the author on their profile. Now, let's dive into the fanfic. Fear not. All Might's booming voice called out, lacking his usual jovial tone, instead replaced entirely with rage. The symbol of Peace's face was twisted in anger as he stood atop of entrance of the training facility, seeing all the destruction and danger his students had endured. I am here. All right, Mirko said in a tone dripping with fury as she balled her fists hard enough to cause her veins to bulge, her eyes narrowing dangerously. Who had the balls to mess with my students? All Might Rumi, Izuku thought, feeling tears sting his eyes as he felt an overwhelming sense of relief. You're finally here. Ah, now, isn't this interesting? Shigaraki said as he stared at newly arrived pro-heroes. Things just got a whole lot more exciting. While I was on my way here, I started to get a bad feeling. Aizawa wasn't hounding me to be on time like he usually does. All Might explained, scanning over the entire training facility and taking in the damage that had been caused. So, Mirko and I rushed over as quickly as possible. Then, we ran into Ida on our way here. Rumi growled as a vein pulsed on her forehead, her voice dripping with rage. He told us the gist of what was happening. Looking out at the frightened faces of her students, Rumi felt her anger spike considerably. Even though Rumi hadn't been teaching them for very long, she had grown quite fond of her students. And it just made my blood boil. You poor kids must have been so scared. When I find who's behind this, I'll break every bone in their goddamn body. Aizawa 13, my precious colleagues, I'm sure you both did your best to protect our students. All Might thought with a scowl on his face, loosening his tie a bit before ripping it off in frustration. Don't worry, I will keep you all safe now. All Might, Izuku thought as he stared at his longtime mentor, feeling slightly uneasy when he saw the furious look on his face. He's not smiling. I've never seen him this angry before. Mirko being here is unexpected. But still, I've been waiting. Heroes, Shigaraki said, all his attention now focusing on All Might. You're all worthless trash. W.O. One of the fodder villains breathed out in awe as he gazed at All Might and Mirko. I've never seen either of them in person before. There's an overwhelming pressure in the air now. We can't down, you idiot, another fodder villain exclaimed, smacking the other upside the head. We're here to kill them. Mirko, All Might said as he glanced over at his fellow pro-hero, seeing the same anger he was feeling on her face. Are you ready? Oh, I've been ready since before we even got here. Rumi growled, the muscles in her legs flexing slightly as she prepared to pounce into action. I've got your back, All Might. So, let's kick some ass. Try to keep up. All Might said, his usual jovial and playful tone and demeanor completely gone. Then, in the blink of an eye, All Might and Mirko launched forward, clearing the entire central plaza in a single bound. Behind the pro-heroes lay over a dozen villains, all of them taken out before they could react. All Might and Mirko didn't appear to be even slightly winded as they stopped next to Eraserhead. Seeing the battered and beaten state Eraserhead was in, All Might released a heavy sigh and crouched down next to him, placing a comforting hand on his back. I'm so sorry, Aizawa. His arms and face, goddamn, he took a major beating. Rumi thought as she examined Aizawa's injuries, feeling a pang of worry when she saw how serious they actually were. Looking over, Rumi scowled when she spotted the monstrous creature towering over Izuku. If I had to guess, that freak did this to Eraserhead. Feeling a tap on her shoulder, Rumi looked back and noticed All Might subtly gesturing toward Eraserhead. Picking up on what All Might wanted her to do, Rumi nodded her head. He's right, we need to get Eraserhead out of danger. Without a word, both All Might and Mirko sprang into action. Displaying their incredible speed, Mirko picked up Aizawa and leapt away from the central plaza. While All Might dashed toward the Namu, instead of attacking, he avoided the terrifying creature and picked up Izuku, Tsuyu, and even Mainta, carrying his students to safety. After setting Aizawa down at the facility's entrance, Mirko quickly dashed back over and rejoined All Might, standing protectively in front of her students. Everyone get to the entrance, All Might announced, tightly balling his fists as he glared fiercely at Shigaraki and the Namu. You need to get Aizawa out of here. He's unconscious and needs immediate medical attention, so hurry up. All Might, Izuku thought as he gazed up at his mentor, a worried look flashing through his eyes when he noticed that All Might was trembling slightly. He must be reaching his limit. This really isn't good. Ah, this is just no good, I'm sorry, father. Shigaraki muttered, bending down to pick up the shriveled hand that had been covering his face, which had been blown off when All Might sped past him. After reattaching the hand, Shigaraki began to aggressively scratch his wrists, throwing punches and kicks to save people. Ha 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 ha, that's our state-sponsored violence. You're both so fast, too fast to even keep up with. However, you All Might, you're a tad slower than expected. Could it be true that you're getting weaker? All Might, Mirko, you need to be careful, Izuku exclaimed as he briefly stared down at his clenched fist before looking back up at the pro-heroes. That monster with its brain exposed, I wasn't using full power. But still, my attack didn't even make it flinch. Up against it, you... No need to worry, kid, Rumi said with a smirk, giving Izuku a thumbs up. We're pro-heroes, have a little faith in us. She's right, young Midoriya, All Might said as his confident smile briefly returned, flashing a peace sign. Fear not, All Might glanced over at Mirko and nodded, both of them understanding what to do. Forming an X with his arms, All Might charged toward the Namu. Carolina. Namu, Shigaraki said, taking a step back so that he was out of the line of fire. Tear them both to pieces. Smash! All Might exclaimed as he used the momentum from his movement and released an extreme amount of force through a double chop attack. However, All Might was shocked when his attack appeared to do no damage, the monster in front of him appearing to be completely unfazed. Seeing that the creature was about to attack, All Might quickly ducked down, narrowly avoiding being grabbed by the Namu. Seriously, young Midoriya wasn't kidding. Give me a shot at this bastard, Rumi exclaimed, rushing forward and leaping up into the air. Raising her leg, Rumi swung her foot downwards while she was above the Namu, driving a mighty kick into the monster's neck. Luna fall. However, Rumi was stunned when her attack seemed to stop dead in its tracks, the monster beneath her barely moving an inch. The only indication that her attack had even done anything was the ground beneath the Namu cracking and caving in slightly. Before she could get away, the Namu grabbed a hold of Mirko's leg, hurling her across the training facility as if she weighed nothing. Seeing that she was flying toward a wall, Rumi quickly reoriented herself and slammed into it feet first. She then used the wall as a makeshift springboard, rocketing herself backward the Namu. Luna Arc, Rumi yelled as she raised her leg and delivered a powerful front-facing axe kick to the Namu's head. But, just like before, the Namu seemed barely fazed by her attack. What the? It's like I'm kicking a damn ball of rubber. At the same time, Mirko, All Might roared, and hitting the Namu in the stomach with a tremendous punch. Just as All Might's attack landed, Rumi spun around the Namu and hit in the back with a devastating roundhouse kick. However, even with their combined attack power, the Namu still barely flinched. What? Still no effect at all? Seeing the monster's exposed brain, All Might decided to hit it with a powerful punch. But even this seemed to barely do anything, the Namu seeming to barely notice the attack. Just what the hell is this thing? None of your attacks are having any effect. That's because this Namu has shock absorption. Shigaraki explained with a hint of satisfaction in his voice as he watched Mirko and All Might attack the Namu simultaneously once again, but still receiving the same results. If you really want to damage Namu, you'd be better off slowly ripping him apart, bit by bit. But it's not like he'll give you a chance to do that. Thanks for the info. I really appreciate it, All Might exclaimed, before wrapping his arms around the Namu's waist and suplexing the monster into the ground with incredible force. This is no sweat. Luna fall, Rumi yelled as she slammed her foot into the Namu's chest, creating an explosion of dust and debris. Growling in frustration, Rumi really dug her foot into the monster's chest. Stay down. Holy hell. Mainta breathed out, watching the awesome display of power as he made his way toward the facility's entrance. How does suplex and kick create an explosion like that? All Might and Mirko are in a league of their own. They may be newbie teachers who still need to use cheat sheets, Tsuyu said as she gazed at the billowing cloud of dust and smoke. But there's no denying their power as pro heroes. They may have a way to kill All Might. Meanwhile, we're practically helpless, Izuku thought, staring back at the scene of destruction as he worried for his mentor's safety. What's worse, we'd just get in the way if one of us was captured. There's no use speculating about the villains. I just need to trust in All Might and Rumi. Guess we were worried for nothing, Ribbit, Tsuyu said as she pressed a finger to her chin. I knew All Might was unreal, but with Mirko backing him up, those villains don't stand a chance, Ribbit. However, as the dust began to settle and the outcome of All Might and Mirko's combined attack became visible, Izuku's eyes widened in shock. What he saw caused his breath to hitch. Instead of being pulverized into the ground, the Namu's body had been partially teleported by Kurogiri, allowing the monstrous creature to avoid any damage. The Namu's upper body had reappeared underneath All Might, one of its clawed hands digging into the wound on his side, while the other pierced Mirko's right calf. All Might grunted in pain as he barely fought back, coughing up blood, causing it to dribble down his chin. Rumi roared in pain, using her free leg to kick the Namu's hand away before she leapt away. Landing several feet away, Rumi stumbled slightly as she hissed. Dropping down onto one knee, Rumi gripped the wound on her calf as it gushed blood. Growling in rage, Rumi stood back up and stomped her uninjured leg, causing the ground beneath her to partially cave in. You piece of shit, I'll destroy you. So, you hope to bury Namu in the concrete and hinder his movements, Shigaraki commented as he slowly clapped mockingly. But that wouldn't work. Namu is as powerful as you both. And I must say, perfect timing, Kurogiri, I mean it. What unbelievable strength, All Might thought, grunting in pain as Namu's fingers continued to dig into his old wound. Cut that out, you bastard. That's my weak point. Taking a moment to recompose himself, All Might put back on his confident and upbeat facade. This is impressive for first-time criminals, but you best prepare yourselves. I can't say I particularly enjoy the idea of having blood and guts inside my gate, but if they're yours, I'll happily oblige, Kurogiri said as his main body materialized a few feet away from All Might. You see, it's Namu's job to work around that blinding speed of yours and hold you down. And it's my job to close the warp gate while you're halfway through and immobilized. Izuku felt his blood chill when he heard this, finally realizing what the villain's plan to kill All Might was, thereby cutting you in half. Izuku's mind was racing as he tightly balled his fists, struggling to decide what to do. All Might had said to get to the exit, and Izuku didn't want to get in his way, but at the same time, he couldn't just abandon his mentor. Gritting his teeth in frustration, Izuku made up his mind and tightly balled his fists. Tsuyu. What is it, Izuku-chan? Tsuyu asked, as she stared back at Izuku. It seems like something is bothering you. Make sure Mainta gets to the entrance with everyone else. Izuku said as he pointed toward the facility's exit, where most of his classmates were. Both of you get to safety. Tsuyu hummed, pressing a finger to her chin before she nodded her head. Sure, but what are you? Thanks, Tsuyu, Izuku said as he suddenly ran off, racing toward All Might. Green electricity crackled off Izuku's body as One for All's immense power flowed through his veins. I won't let this happen, All Might. There are still so many things you need to teach me. I can't lose you. Lunging toward the Namu, Izuku aiming to free All Might from the monstrous creature's clutches. All Might! Young Midoriya, All Might thought, feeling the Namu's fingers dig deeper into his side as he watched his successor rocketing toward him. Stay away. How foolish, Kirigiri said as his body began to swirl and expand, a new portal materializing right in front of Izuku. You won't survive this. Stay away from him, Rumi roared, her foot suddenly slamming into Kirigiri's metallic collar. The force behind Rumi's attack sent out a shockwave, dissipating Kirigiri's body and stopping his new portal from forming. After driving Kirigiri's main body into the ground, Rumi spun on the ball of her foot and sprang toward the Namu. Let go of All Might, you disgusting bastard. Crouching down low, Rumi hooked her foot behind the Namu's arm, pulling it out of All Might's side. Once he was free, All Might quickly leapt away, landing next to Izuku and Rumi. Panting heavily, All Might clutched his side, blood seeping through his shirt. Kirigiri looked like he was about to recover and retaliate, but he was stopped by a series of explosions. A split second later, he was slammed into the ground once again, Bakugo straddling him with a sadistic grin. Ha ha! Where do you think you're going, you misty prick? Bakugo taunted as he kept Kirigiri pinned to the ground and unable to move. You aren't anything special. Nice work, Bakugo, Rumi said, her red eyes narrowing slightly as the impressive muscles in her legs tensed. Keep that piece of shit down. Well, looks like you've pinned down our escape method, Shigaraki said in a disappointed tone as he sighed lightly, gazing at Kirigiri and Bakugo. This is quite the predicament. Ha, you bastard! And it's just like I thought, Bakugo exclaimed, miniature explosions crackling in his palm as he continued to subdue Kirigiri. The parts you can turn into that foggy warp gate shit are limited. And you're using that misty shit to hide your real body. I'm right, aren't I? If your body was all mist and physical attacks didn't work, then you wouldn't have said that was a close one after Deku attacked you. His sadistic smirk returned, and Bakugo leaned in closer to Kirigiri. Don't even try to move, or do anything fishy. If you do, I'll blow you to pieces. Not only have foiled our plans, you're practically still at full strength. You heroes really are something. Our League of Villains should be ashamed, Shigaraki said as he clasped his hands together, twiddling his thumbs over and over again. Namu, take out the loud-mouthed brat who uses explosions. We need our escape route back. With a low growl rumbling in its throat, the Namu pulled itself out of Kirigiri's portal. Make sure you kill him too. I find his voice quite irritating. In a split second, the Namu was rushing toward Bakugo, covering the distance between them at an incredible speed. Reacting quickly, All Might leapt in the Namu's path and pushed Bakugo out of the creature's way. At the last second, All Might raised his arms to block the Namu's attack. With a thunderous crack, All Might was sent flying back, smashing into a nearby building. All of the University were stunned as they were hit by a small shockwave that was sent out by the attack. Kaken, Izuku exclaimed, rushing over to his frenemy's side and crouching down next to him. Are you okay? I'm fine. Bakugo breathed out as he let out a shaky breath, feeling his heart thunder in his chest. They were so damn fast, I couldn't see a thing. God damn, this guy doesn't know how to hold back, All Might said between heavy breaths, coughing several times as blood dribbled down his chin. Glancing down at his arms, All Might grimaced when he saw how battered they were, having taken the full brunt of the Namu's attack. I don't know how much time I have left. He took the hit for that kid, Shigaraki thought as he stared at All Might, his eyes narrowing dangerously. Anything to save a comrade, right? Just like earlier, when that green-haired one, he came at me with everything he had. But I suppose violence in the name of saving others is admirable. Isn't it, heroes? You know what, All Might. Pausing for a moment, Shigaraki outstretched his arms. That really pisses me off. Both heroes and villains thrive off violence, but we're still categorized. You're good, you're evil. That's how it is. Symbol of peace? Ha! In the end, you're just a different tool of violence used to keep us in the dirt. And violence only leads to more violence. I'll show the entire world that by killing you. What a load of bullshit, All Might said, wiping the blood from his lips. Idealistic villains always have a strange fire burning in their eyes. Turning slightly, All Might locked eyes with Izuku and Bakugo. You two, get out of here. Mirko and I will handle this. But you're bleeding, All Might, Izuku exclaimed in a worried tone as he glanced over at the Namu, the terrifying creature bearing its fangs. You have to let us. I thank you both for your help so far, All Might boasted, giving Izuku a thumbs up before tightly balling his fists. But fear not. Stay back and watch some pro heroes get serious. Hold on a second, All Might, Rumi said with a smirk before she surprised Izuku by putting her hand on his back and gently pushing him forward. With her smirk widening, Rumi held up 3 fingers. That tough took a beating from the both of us earlier and didn't even flinch. Its quirk is shock absorption, right? So, that must mean it has a limit. With the 3 of us working together, I'm sure we can overwhelm it and take this piece of shit down. All Might said nothing for several moments, mulling over what Rumi had said. He could feel one for All's power fading with every second that passed, and knew that he had maybe 1 to 2 minutes left before he wouldn't be able to fight any longer. So, All Might reluctantly nodded his head, motioning for Rumi and Izuku to join him. All right, you two, let's teach these villains a lesson. Kurogiri Namu, take them out, Shigaraki said as he turned to face Bakugo. I'll handle the loud one. Without warning, Shigaraki began to charge toward Bakugo. Let's kill these guys, then go home. Follow my lead, boys, Rumi said with a toothy grin, ignoring the pulsing pain in her leg as she rushed toward the Namu, the creature going on the offensive too. Winding up a powerful kick, Rumi met one of the Namu's devastating punches with her leg, sending out a large shockwave. The force behind the shockwave forced Shigaraki to leap out of the way to avoid it. Pulling her leg back, Rumi quickly ducked down low and hit the Namu in the chest with both legs, sending the monster skidding backward. At an incredible speed, before the Namu could recover, Rumi bounded toward it like a rabbit. I'm not done yet, you freak. Lunar Rush. Mirko rushed toward the Namu and pummeled the monster with a series of powerful kicks. Each time the Namu would try to counterattack, Rumi would effortlessly duck and dodge every attack, following up with yet another devastating kick. After a particularly brutal series of kicks to the head, the Namu appeared to be momentarily stunned. Taking advantage of this rare opening, Rumi crouched down low. Using her hands on the ground to steady herself, Rumi kicked out with both her legs, sending the Namu flying into the air. All Might, you're up, Rumi exclaimed as she gestured toward the dazed Namu. Lands some hits in while it's still stunned. Right, All Might bellowed, pausing for a moment to nod at Izuku before leaping into the air, crushing the ground where he had just been standing. Feeling one for All's power flow through his entire body, All Might unleashed a blindingly fast barrage of attacks, trading blow with the Namu back and forth. After one last flurry of punches, All Might prepared to put everything he had into his next attack. I am the symbol of peace, with blood pouring from his mouth. A hero is always ready to smash through any trouble. With a sound of a deafening explosion, All Might's fist slammed into the Namu's head. Texas Smash. The power behind All Might's attack reverberated all throughout the Namu's body, and for the first time, it looked like the creature had felt some pain. With a powerful shockwave, the Namu was sent flying even further into the air, hurtling toward the training facility's ceiling. As All Might fell toward the ground, he looked toward Izuku, giving his successor a thumbs up. "It's your turn, kid. Finish that off," Rumi said with a smirk before she laid down on her back down and bent her legs. Once she fully was in position, Rumi gestured toward her legs. "I'll help you reach that monster in an instant." "Got it," Izuku said, quickly catching on to what Mirko's plan was. With green electricity crackling off his body, Izuku sprinted toward Rumi, before leaping into the air above her. Falling back down, Izuku prepared himself for what was about to happen. As soon as the bottom of Izuku's feet pressed against Rumi's own, her muscular legs snapped forward, sending Izuku soaring through the air toward the Namu at an incredible speed. Holy shit! As Izuku rapidly approached the Namu, he began to focus all of One for All's power into his arm, but a pang of doubt ran through his mind. Will 100% even be enough? That monster took hits from both All Might and Rumi like they were nothing. Will I even be able? Young Mindaria, Izuku was snapped out of his thoughts when he heard All Might's bellowing voice call out to him. "They said that monster was designed to counter me, made to withstand everything I've got, but you'll have to go beyond that." He's right, Izuku thought, tightly balling his fist and as prepared to put everything he had into this next attack. Thinking about all his friends and classmates, All Might and Rumi, Ochako and the other girls, how none of them would be safe until this monster was gone. As Izuku neared the Namu, he felt a strange sensation wash over him. It was almost as if he could sense One for All being passed down from user to user, its power growing stronger each time. Izuku could feel One for All's power swelling considerably as his shirt was blown away, his entire arm glowing brightly with power. "I need to go beyond, plus ultra." Izuku's veins were glowing with raw power as his fist rocketed forward. One for All 1000%, Detroit Smash. With an impact that rocked the entire facility, Izuku's fist slammed into the Namu's jaw. The monster's face partially caved in as the tremendous force behind Izuku's attack reverberated through its body. Then, with a thunderous crack, the Namu was sent flying backward at a blistering speed. Seconds later, the monstrous creature crashed into the facility's ceiling, easily exploding through it. The Namu's eyes were lifeless and its mouth completely destroyed as it hurtled back toward the ground. Holy shit! Rumi breathed out with a smirk as she felt a pleasurable chill run down her spine, watching Izuku's incredible display of power. This goddamn kid really is something special. What the hell? Bakugo thought, tightly balling his fists as he clenched his teeth in frustration. I knew Deku had gotten stronger, but this insane. Goddamn, young Midoriya. All Might thought as a massive, proud grin spread across his face, wanting nothing more than to hug his successor and tell him how proud he was. That was beyond impressive. Guys, Izuku yelled in a panic, awkwardly flailing his limbs as he rapidly descended toward the ground. I'm still falling here? Don't worry, kid, Rumi said before she leapt into the air, catching Izuku before he could hit the ground. Once they had landed, Rumi set Izuku down and playfully slapped his back. That was amazing, kid. How's your arm, by the way? That was a stupidly powerful attack you just landed. It hurts, a lot, Izuku said, staring down at his arm as he clenched and unclenched his fist several times. However, despite the pulsing pain, Izuku still felt that he had full motion and control of his arm. But I don't think anything is broken, not even a fracture. I think that monster absorbed pretty much all of the energy from my smash, so I didn't take any major recoil damage. Usajima is right, young Midoriya. That was spectacular, All Might said with a grin as he gave the green-haired boy a thumbs up. As All Might turned to face Shigaraki, he grimaced as he felt his power starting to fade. That's it, looks like my time's up. Wiping away the blood from his mouth, All Might glared at Shigaraki. Well, villain, how about we hurry up and end this? TCH, you all cheated, Shigaraki muttered, aggressively scratching at his neck once again as he narrowed his eyes. Cheated, cheated, cheated. How dare you do that to my Namu, you damn cheaters. Hunching forward slightly, Shigaraki clutched his head. He's not weak at all. They lied to me. Well, coming to get me? All Might taunted as he felt One for All's power reach dangerously low amounts, knowing that he had to end this fight immediately. He was hoping that the rest of the villains would either surrender or give up and run away. I thought you were going to kill us all. Hoping to deliver the final blow and make the villains run away in fear, All Might gave them the fiercest glare he could. If you can still take me, then bring it on. Grrrrrrr. Shigaraki growled, tightly balling his fists as Kurogiri's dark mist began to swirl behind him. How dare you? All Might, Izuku thought as he gazed at his mentor, noticing that steam was coming off his body. However, this steam was mixed in with the dust and debris lingering in the air, which masked it fairly well. He's totally bluffing. It's hidden pretty well, but that's definitely the steam that appears when he's transforming. Izuku then glanced over at Shigaraki, clenching his teeth. Please, just take the bait and give up. I can't even move anymore. That damn Namu was so strong. All Might thought, still feeling a sharp pain radiating from his side. If I take even one more step, I'll lose control over my transformation, and I'll revert to my true form. I just need to lay it on a bit thicker, just need to keep them scared and buy a bit more time. Taking a breath to compose himself, All Might bellowed out once again. Well, what's keeping you? If only we still had Namu, if only, Shigaraki growled as he began to scratch at his skin even more erratically, his body starting to tremble. He was taking hits so well. Tamura Shigaraki, calm yourself, Kurogiri said, materializing beside Shigaraki. It's apparent that Namu did manage to deal some real damage. Reinforcements from the school are bound to arrive soon, so we need to act fast. If both of us attack at once, we may still have a chance. Right, Shigaraki repeated as he stopped scratching at his skin, a few trails of blood dripping down his neck. The last boss and his lackeys are right in front of us. We can do this. TCH, this fight is over. These guys are done. All Might will handle them. Bakugo scoffed, turning around and starting to walk away. Come on, Deku. We should go see if we can help the others, maybe even take out some stragglers. However, when he looked back, Bakugo was surprised to see that Izuku wasn't following him. Instead, the green-haired boy's brow was furrowed as he appeared to be intensely contemplating something. Deku? Oi, what the hell's up with you? You okay, kid? Rumi asked as she quirked an eyebrow, worrying about how uneasy Izuku looked. Is something bothering you? I'm the only one who knows, Izuku muttered under his breath, clenching and unclenching his fists repeatedly as his mind began to race. If I think about it logically, the mist guy is probably more dangerous, and All Might has to be at his limit. If that mist guy manages to suck him into one of his portals. This is revenge for Namu, Shigaraki exclaimed as he and Kurogiri charged All Might, shocking the symbol of peace. You die here. God damn it, here they come, All Might thought, tightly balling his fists as he began to panic and felt his heart race. Holy shit, why couldn't they just run away? Hurry up, everyone, I'm in a real... Get the hell away from him. All Might was shocked when he heard two familiar voices yell out. Turning his head, All Might was surprised to see Izuku and Rumi launching toward him, only a few feet away from Shigaraki and Kurogiri. Deku, Bakugo shouted in surprise, noticing that Izuku and Rumi had both disappeared in almost an instant. At least let me help, damn it. So fast, Shigaraki thought as his eyes widened in shock, watching as Izuku and Rumi sped toward him and Kurogiri. What the hell? That's not fair. We're barely going to make it, Izuku thought, taking aim at Kurogiri as green electricity crackled off his body. I just need to aim for his real body. That'll take HM out. I still need to pay you bastards back for hurting my students, Rumi snarled as she wound up her leg, preparing to hit Shigaraki. You're the leader of these, so you need to be crushed. However, Kurogiri's mist suddenly spread out in front of Izuku and Rumi, blocking their path. But before either of them could find a way around the obstacle in their way, they were surprised when Shigaraki's hands suddenly sprang out of the mist. Because Rumi was closest, Shigaraki reached out to grab her leg first. Having seen how deadly Shigaraki's quirk was, Izuku knew that he couldn't let Rumi get touched by him. So, without a second thought, Izuku leapt toward Rumi and tackled her out of the way. What the F, kid? Rumi roared, trying to free herself from Izuku's grasp. We had that little. You haven't seen what his quirk can do, Izuku exclaimed as he easily held Rumi back, despite her intense thrashing which surprised the rabbit hero. If he had touched you, it could have killed you. What are? Rumi was cut off when a gunshot suddenly rang out, the bullet piercing Shigaraki's hand and forcing him to retract it. Whipping her head around toward where the gunshot had come from, a large smirk suddenly spread across Rumi's face. They're here. Sorry, everyone. A familiar voice spoke, causing Izuku and the other university students to perk up. Turning toward the training facility's entrance, all of the students breathed a sigh of relief when they spotted the university's chancellor, Nezu, leading a pack of pro-heroes. Nezu was a stoat, humanoid hybrid of a number of animals, including a dog, a mouse, and a bear. He had the head of a mouse, with a muzzle and rectangular ears, a scar that goes across his right eye, both of which were circular and black, as well as a tail. He wore a suit befitting his role as chancellor that consisted of a white shirt, red tie, along with a black waistcoat and pants. He wore big, orange sneakers that seemed quite similar to the shoes that Izuku wore. We're a little late, but I brought everyone I could. Class 1 a representative, Tenya Ida, Tenya exclaimed as he stood at the front of the group of pro-heroes. Reporting for duty? Ah, that's unfortunate. It's really game over now, Shigaraki said, putting pressure on the bullet hole in his hand as he stared at the group of at least a dozen pro-heroes. I suppose we'll have to try again another time. Kurogiri, let's... Shigaraki was cut off by a sudden hail of gunfire, several bullets managing to hit him. Kurogiri, get us out of here, now. You ne'er-do-wells aren't going anywhere, Snipe exclaimed as he took aim with his modified revolver and fired another barrage of shots. From this distance, I can easily wrangle you in. Snipe had the appearance of a stereotypical Western cowboy. His face was covered by an old-school tan gas mask, shaped like a horse's muzzle, with triangular holes for his eyes and silver ear defenders wired to the sides of the mask. But his dark, bluish shoulder-length dreadlocks were visible from the back and sides. On his head, he wore a brown cowboy hat with a thick metallic plate at the front, a large S stamped in the center, and his footwear was gray boots with knee-high shafts and vamps with silver trims that dipped a little at the front, a heel band with a spur at the end attached to the back of each boot. He also wore a large red cloak, buttoned up at the top, with frayed ends, under which he sported a plain black tank top with white armor strapped over the right side of his torso, and a brown belt with a gun holster attached to his hip. He had baggy dark brown pants with yellow chaps over them in stereotypical cowboy fashion. On his arms, he wore black skin-tight arm guards going up to his biceps and on his hands and tan gloves. Don't worry, Tamura Shigaraki. I will, Kurogiri started to say, beginning to transport Shigaraki away. However, he was cut off when he felt parts of his misty body being sucked and pulled away. I'm getting dragged away. This has to be, Kurogiri growled in frustration when he saw that 13 was conscious again, using their quirk to stop him. Damn you. Why, you aren't getting away, 13 exclaimed as they held out their arm, sucking in portions of Kurogiri's mist. I won't let you. I may have failed here, symbol of peace, Shigaraki said, feeling Kirigiri's mist envelope more of his body. Despite 13's attempt to stop him, Kirigiri managed to pull away enough of his mist to start teleporting them both away. But the next time we meet, you're all dead, All Might, and your little helpers too. With those final words, Kirigiri and Shigaraki both disappeared, teleporting out of the facility. Once he was positive that they were no longer in danger, Izuku got off of Rumi and helped her onto her feet. After dusting himself off, Izuku turned toward where All Might had been standing. Partially hidden amongst a cloud of steam and debris, the symbol of peace was starting to revert to his normal, emaciated form, with only half of his body still transformed. Fearing that All Might may be seriously injured, Izuku rushed over, with Rumi following closely behind him. All Might, are you okay? Izuku asked in a worried tone as he gazed at the bloody spot on All Might's side. Slightly turning his head, Izuku spotted the injury on Rumi's leg, still dribbling blood. Gritting his teeth in frustration, Izuku tightly balled his fists. Damn it, I didn't do enough. Why couldn't I help more? That's not true, young Midoriya, All Might said, smiling softly at his successor. If you and Rumi hadn't helped me, I would definitely be dead. You both saved me. Yeah, don't be so hard on yourself, kid, Rumi said with a grin as she playfully slapped Izuku's back, causing him to stumble forward slightly. Besides, you seriously kicked ass. You sent that monster flying. I'm so glad you're both okay, Izuku exclaimed, feeling tears sting his eyes as he quickly wiped them away. However, Izuku's head suddenly snapped up when he realized that something was off about the current situation. Wait, All Might, is it okay for Rumi-sensei to see you like this? Don't worry about it, kid, Rumi said with a smirk as she gave Izuku a thumbs up. I learned about All Might's secret when I joined the staff at UA University. Suddenly hissing in pain, Rumi fell onto one knee, gripping her injured leg. God damn it, I had so much adrenaline pumping that I couldn't even feel this earlier. But now it really hurts. Here, I'll help you, Izuku said, offering Rumi a hand as he pulled her back up. Once she was standing again, Rumi started leaning against Izuku for support, not wanting to put any extra pressure on her leg. We need to get you some first aid. Let's see if Recovery Girl is here. What in tarnation? Snipe muttered as he pulled down his hat slightly. Ain't that just the oddest thing? They really just fled? Midnight asked, resting her hands on her hips. After making such a flashy entrance and invading one of our facilities. Midnight was a tall, curvaceous woman with sky-blue eyes, which tilted downwards in the center, framed by a set of rather long eyelashes. She had long, thick, spiky dark purple hair, which was made up of layers of varying lengths, the longest ones reaching down below her waist. Her chin-length bangs were split into 3 sections, 2 swept to the sides and 1 over her face, going diagonally down to the left between her eyes. She also had a small beauty mark below her left eye, as well as red painted nails. Her hero costume was very similar to one of a traditional dominatrix. She wore a black leather leotard, similar in style to a corset, over a thin, skin-tight, flesh-colored bodysuit, which accentuated her voluptuous figure. The center strip of her leotard was embellished with red gemstone-like accessories in a vertical pattern, extending from her collar to her midriff. She also wore translucent, black, thigh-high garter stockings, which were attached to a burgundy utility belt decorated with gold studs around her hips, a matching pentagonal buckle in its center, and black knee boots. She had a small red mask outlining her eyes and a handcuff on each wrist. Lastly, she was carrying a flogger-style whip. They took us completely off guard, Nezu said as he clasped his hands behind his back. But right now, we need to focus on the safety of our students. Oh, but before that, Cementos said, gesturing toward a group of students, led by Kirishima rushing toward Izuku and All Might. Pressing his hands onto the ground, Cementos created a large cement barrier, blocking All Might from the other students, keeping his secret safe from them. Standing back up, Cementos turned to face the surprised students. We need to make sure all you students are safe, and take care of any injuries. I'll handle the wounded. Cementos appeared to be a humanoid block of cement with black, seemingly shut eyes and gray hair tied into a short ponytail. His body shape was evenly blocky all around his body. His eyes were generally closed and his lips were pulled upwards. His hero costume consisted of a sleeveless brown suit that included yellow stripes, shorts, and an elongated collar. He also sported gray shoes with yellow soles. "Makes sense, Roger that," Kirishima exclaimed as he gave a thumbs up, before running off. "I'll help out too." "Thank you," All Might said, breathing a sigh of relief as he sat on the ground, now fully back in his emaciated form. "That was close, Cementos." "I'm a big fan of yours," Cementos said with a small smile, nervously tapping his fingers together. "So, let's get you and Rumi to the nurse's office without revealing this side of you. But seriously, you need to stop overworking yourself." "Haha, we'd be dead if we didn't go all out," Rumi laughed as a devious grin spread across her face, Izuku helping her limp out of the training facility. "Those bastards were really strong." Same time, unknown bar. "Oof." Shigaraki grunted, being dropped onto the bar's floor. Hissing in pain, Shigaraki simply lay motionless on the floor as blood poured from his wounds. "I was shot in both my arms and legs. We were completely crushed. They even got Namu too. All of our cannon fodder were taken down immediately. Even those damn students were strong. The symbol of peace was in perfect health. You were wrong, Master." "No, I was not." An imposing voice spoke up from a nearby monitor. "We merely jumped the gun. Yes, we did underestimate him. Good thing that League of Villains came cheap. That's beside the point. What happened to our creation? Did you recover Namu?" "He was sent flying, so unless we have his precise coordinates," Kirigiri said as his body fully materialized, taking on his humanoid form. "I could warp endlessly and still not find him. I had to get us out of there fast, so I couldn't spare any time. After all the trouble we went through to make him as strong as All Might." The voice through the monitor said in a disappointed tone, letting out a light sigh. "Well, that's a shame. Such a waste." "Strong?" There was one student who stood out. Shigaraki groaned as he turned his head slightly to look up at the monitor. "This kid seemed just as fast as All Might, nearly as strong too." The voice over the monitor was silent for several moments. "Oh, that is interesting. Without that pest and Mirko, we might have been able to kill All Might," Shigaraki said in a frustrated tone, tightly balling his fists. "But that nuisance, that goddamn bastard. There's no use crying over something that's in the past. This endeavor was not a complete loss." The imposing voice spoke, which caused Shigaraki to quirk an eyebrow. "Just find stronger troops. Take as long as you need. We can't move about freely. That is why we need a symbol like you. Tamura Shigaraki, next time, the world will know of the terror you can unleash." Back at the rescue training facility. 16-17-18. A police detective said, counting the students of class 1 to ensure that they were all there. "Looks like all the students are uninjured too." "What about Aizawa-sensei?" Tsuyu asked in a slightly concerned tone. "He was beaten up really bad, Ribbit. Both of his arms were almost completely destroyed. His face is also fractured. Thankfully, he doesn't have any brain damage." The police detective replied, causing the students to wince at the gruesome description. "But his eyes' sockets were completely pulverized. There's a chance he may suffer long-term loss of vision. At least that's what the medics told me." "Holy crap." Mineta breathed out in a shaky voice as he felt a chill run down his spine. "It's a miracle he's still Ollie." Before he could finish, Mineta was cut off when Tsuyu slapped him upside the head. "Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Also, 13 has terrible lacerations across their back and upper arms, but their life isn't in danger." the detective continued, before pulling out his cell phone and sending a quick message. All Might's injuries aren't life-threatening, and Mirko only received one minor injury to her leg. Recovery Girl's healing should be enough for both of them, so they've gone to the nurse's office. "What about Deku? I mean Izuku?" Ochako asked in a worried tone as she nervously balled her fists. "He left with All Might and Mirko, right?" "Ah, Izuku. You mean Midoriya. I don't have any reports about him, so I think it's safe to say he's uninjured. I believe he was simply helping Mirko reach the nurse's office," the detective said, causing Ochako and Izuku's other potential lovers to breathe a sigh of relief. Turning off his phone, the detective slipped it into his trench coat pocket. "I actually have business there myself, so I'll leave things to the other officers." This truly is worrisome," Nezu muttered as he stroked his chin, gazing out at the devastated state the training facility was in. "We'll have to completely rework our security systems. Teleportation quirks are quite rare," Midnight said, resting her flogging whip on her shoulder. "It's a shame that someone with one of them had to become a villain." Detective Tsukachi, one of the uniformed officers, called out as he saluted, stopping the detective before he could leave the building. "I have a report. We've apprehended a villain in a thicket about 1,000 meters from here. Some type of creature." "Oh, is that so?" Tsukachi said, stopping and looking over his shoulder back at the officer. "In what condition are they in?" "He appears to have had serious injuries that healed, leaving scars across his body, but other than that he appears to be unharmed. He didn't resist arrest either," the officer reported as he lowered his arm. "It's strange though, he isn't responding to anything or anyone. He appears to be mute." "I see. Thank you for the update," Tsukachi said before the uniformed officer quickly saluted and jogged away. Turning back around, Tsukachi looked down at Nezu. "Chancellor, I'd like to investigate the school as thoroughly as possible." "Ah, go right ahead," Nezu said with a smile, waving to Tsukachi as he walked off. "I'm sure some people won't be happy, but the police certainly have jurisdiction. Investigations are your area of expertise. Do whatever you feel is necessary." 20 minutes later, UA, University Nurse's Office. "I must say, I'm surprised you came out of that fight completely unscathed, Midoriya," Recovery Girl said as she released a light sigh and sank into her chair. "I expected you to be beaten up and battered like All Might. I mean, other than some strained muscles in your arm, you're totally fine. But given the situation, I suppose I can't scold you, All Might. And you, Mirko, you'll be fully healed in a day or two. Just try to go easy on that leg for a bit." "You got it, Doc," Rumi said with a grin, giving a thumbs up as she sat on the edge of her bed. "But you really are a freaking miracle work. My leg doesn't even hurt anymore. I think I've probably shortened my limit again," All Might said as he stared up at the ceiling, before turning his head and gazing at Rumi and Izuku. "I'll be lucky I can still push 2 hours a day, but it'd be even worse if you two weren't there to back me up. You both helped take some of the burden off me, thank you so much." "Of course, All Might," Izuku said, feeling tears sting his eyes as he reached out to gently grip All Might's hand. "You've done so much for me over the years, it's about time I start paying you back." "Of course, I was going to help you," Rumi said as she grunted softly, getting off the bed. Walking over, she placed a hand on All Might's shoulder. "Can't have the symbol of peace croaking just yet." "Heh, no use moping," All Might said with a small smile, slowly sitting up in his bed. "What are you gonna do? Bad things happen sometimes." "Pardon me," Tsukachi said as he opened the door to the office and stepped inside, taking off his hat. "Long time no see, All Might." "Tsukachi, I didn't expect to see you here," All Might exclaimed, some blood spurting from his mouth. Seeing the concerned look on Izuku's face, All Might quickly set him at ease. "Don't worry, young Midoriya. Tsukachi already knows about my condition. He's actually my favorite detective on the force." Ha, thanks for the introduction, Sukachi said as walked over to the side of All Might's bed. I don't mean to rush you, All Might, but I'd like to ask you some questions about these villains. Hold on a moment before we start, All Might said, holding out his hands to stop Sukachi before he could start his questioning him. Are the students all right? What about Aizawa Eraserhead, 13? The worst I've seen from the students are a couple of bumps and bruises. They're all fine, Sukachi explained, which caused All Might to visibly relax. As for the other teachers, they didn't fare as well, but they're out of danger for now. If you 5 heroes. Sukachi briefly glanced over at Izuku and gave him a wink. Hadn't put your lives on the line, all those students wouldn't have made it out unscathed. I see, that does put my heart at ease, but you've got one thing wrong, Sukachi, All Might said, locking eyes with Sukachi and clutching his chest. In this fight, my students put their lives on the line too. To be thrown into a battle like this and survive. Now these freshmen know how scary the world can be. Haha, those stupid villains sure picked the wrong class to mess with, Rumi exclaimed as she threw her head back and let out a hearty laugh. Because the students of Class 1A are going to become badass heroes for sure. Indeed they will, All Might said with a smile, now locking eyes with Izuku. We'll make sure of that. That night, Izuku's apartment. It sure sounds like you had a rough day, Inko said as she began to clear the dinner table. I'm just so glad you and the other students didn't get hurt. Yeah, but some of our teachers took a serious beating, Izuku added, picking up a couple of plates and trays as he followed his mother into the kitchen. I just wish I could have done more to help. From everything you told me, you did more than anyone could have expected, Izuku dear, Inko said with a smile as she playfully ruffled her son's hair. Don't be too hard on yourself. I know you did your best given the situation. Yeah, I guess you're right, Izuku said, before starting to rinse off and clean some dishes. Mother and son simply enjoyed each other's company for a few minutes while they cleaned up. However, Izuku soon broke their silence. Hey, Mom, is it cool if I borrow the car tomorrow? Sure thing, sweetie. I don't have any plans, so go right ahead, Inko said as she set down a dried plate before grabbing another one covered in suds. If you don't mind me asking, where are you going? Well, our classes tomorrow were cancelled, so I was planning to go on a date, Izuku replied, trying and failing to stop his face from flushing slightly as he felt his cheeks start to heat up. Knowing what question was coming next, Izuku decided to preemptively answer. With Momo. Ah, so it seems like the girls are okay with the idea of sharing you. That must also mean your first date with Ochako was successful, Inko said in a teasing tone as she playfully nudged Izuku with her elbow. Seeing her son's face burn even brighter red, Inko knew that their date had been successful in more ways than one. Ooh, I know what that look means. Well, you and Ochako are both old enough, so you're free to express your love for each other. Just please be careful, honey. As much as I'd love it, you're a bit too young to have children. All right, I'm finished cleaning, so I'm done with this conversation, Izuku exclaimed, setting the last set of clean dishes onto the counter before he dashed out of the kitchen. I'm gonna go text Momo. Let's never have this conversation again. Young love is a beautiful thing to see, Inko said as she let out a wistful sigh, watching as Izuku disappeared into his bedroom, closing the door behind him. My baby is really becoming a man. The following afternoon, Momo's mansion. Oh, I'm so nervous, Momo thought, restlessly pacing back and forth in the foyer near her front door. Pausing for a moment, Momo stared down at her clothes, pulling at her blouse. Did I dress appropriately? Izuku did tell me to dress casually. Will he think I look cute? I knew I should have asked Ochako for. Momo was pulled from her thoughts when she heard her doorbell ring. With a slight gasp, Momo whipped toward her front door. He's here? Okay, Momo, take a deep breath and calm down. After taking a breath, Momo walked to her front door and gripped the doorknob. After hesitating for a brief moment, Momo opened the door. When she saw Izuku standing in front of her, Momo felt her breath hitch. She had seen Izuku dressed in casual attire countless times, but it felt so much different now that they were going on an actual date with just the two of them. Feeling butterflies in her stomach, Momo's face flushed slightly. Wow, no matter how many times I come here, this house is still awesome, Izuku said with a grin as noticed how nervous Momo appeared to be, hoping to ease the tension a bit. You look really cute, Momo. Are you ready for our date? Why, yes, of course, Momo shouted, unable to control her voice as a goofy smile spread across her face, her heart fluttering because of Izuku's compliment. Quickly realizing her outburst, Momo immediately became embarrassed and slapped a hand over her mouth. After a moment, Momo coughed into her hand and recomposed herself. I apologize, thank you, Izuku. And yes, I am ready for our date. I know you're a bit nervous, but there's no need to be so formal, Momo, Izuku said with a smile as gently took Momo's hand, causing her to squeak in surprise. With a light pull, Izuku began to lead Momo toward his car. Let's just relax and have fun. Oh, I'm so nervous, Momo thought, restlessly pacing back and forth in the foyer near her front door. Pausing for a moment, Momo stared down at her clothes, tugging at her blouse, before smoothing out her skirt. Did I dress appropriately? Izuku said to dress casually. Will he think I look cute? Erg, I know nothing about fashion. I knew I should have asked Ochako for. Momo was pulled from her thoughts when she heard her doorbell suddenly ring. With a slight gasp, Momo whipped around toward her front door. Ah, he's here. Okay, Momo, take a deep breath and calm down. After taking a few deep breaths, Momo walked to her front door and gripped the doorknob. After hesitating for a brief moment, Momo pulled the door open. When she saw Izuku standing in front of her, Momo felt her breath hitch. She had seen Izuku dressed in casual attire countless times, but it felt so much different now that they were going on an actual date with just the two of them. Feeling butterflies fluttering in her stomach, Momo's face flushed slightly. Wow, no matter how many times I come here, this house is still amazing, Izuku said with a grin as immediately noticed how nervous Momo appeared to be, hoping to ease the tension a bit. You look really cute, Momo. Are you ready for our date? Why, yes, of course, Momo blurted out, unable to control her voice as a goofy smile spread across her face, her heart skipping a beat because of Izuku's simple compliment. Quickly realizing her outburst, Momo immediately became embarrassed and slapped a hand over her mouth. After a moment, Momo coughed into her hand and recomposed herself. I apologize, thank you, Izuku. And yes, I am ready for our date. I know you're a bit nervous, but there's no need to be so formal, Momo, Izuku said with a smile as gently took Momo's hand, causing her to squeak in surprise as her cheeks burned even brighter red. With a light tug, Izuku began to lead Momo toward his car, which he had borrowed from his mother. Let's just relax and have some fun. Okay, Momo said, allowing Izuku to guide him down the driveway. Once they reached the car, Momo's smile widened when Izuku opened the door for her. Thank you, Izuku. My pleasure, Emilde, Izuku joked as he performed an exaggerated, formal bow, causing Momo to chuckle. Happy that he had eased Momo's tension a bit, Izuku quickly dashed around the car and hopped into the driver's seat. Briefly spinning the keys around his finger, Izuku put them in the ignition and started the engine. All right, let's head to our first stop. So, where are we going first? Momo asked, putting on her seatbelt and adjusting her seat. I must admit, I don't know anything about dating, so I'm excited to see what you have planned. Hey, I'm still pretty new to this as well. I've only gone on the one date with Ochako, Izuku replied as he pulled out of Momo's driveway, starting toward their first destination. But I think I've planned a date you'll enjoy. Well, I'm looking forward to it, Momo said with a smile, continuing to make small talk with Izuku as they drove to their first stop. They talked about school, TV shows they were watching, and even a little gossip about their classmates. Momo was enjoying talking to Izuku so much that she almost would have been fine if they ended their date then and there. However, their conversation ended when Izuku pulled into a familiar parking lot. Seeing what their first destination was, Momo quirked an eyebrow. "We're stopping here first?" "Yeah, you're hungry, right?" Izuku asked with a smile as he stopped the engine and stepped out of the car. The green-haired boy had driven them to the same family restaurant they often frequented after school. It was a favorite hangout spot for their friend group, and it was a place that held a lot of memories. "I figured we could go somewhere we know will be good." The two new lovers entered the restaurant, and the servers immediately recognized them. After some light teasing about how cute they looked together, Izuku and Momo were led to their usual booth. Getting their menus, Izuku and Momo began to look them over. Momo's eyes scanned up and down the menu, looking to possibly try something different. However, her face suddenly flushed red when she spotted a new item that had been added to the menu. "Hey Izuku," Momo said in a nervous tone as she set the menu down and pointed toward a specific item. "See, could we try this?" "What's got you so worked up, Momo?" Izuku asked, quirking an eyebrow as he looked down at what Momo was pointing at. But when he saw the item Momo was referring to, his face flushed as well. It was a specialized drink that only couples could order, with a shared straw that twisted in the shape of a heart. Oh, of course we can order that. It looks really good." Their server soon returned to take their drink order. After a moment of embarrassed hesitation, Izuku mustered up the courage to order the special couple's drink, which was appropriately named Lovey-Dovey Delight. Briefly giggling at how flustered Izuku was ordering the drink, the server excused herself to put in their order. Once the server was gone, Izuku and Momo sat in silence, nervously stealing glances at each other. It didn't take the server long to return, setting a large, vibrant pink drink, topped with whipped cream and a cherry, down in the center of the table. "Here you go," the server said with a bright smile as she winked at the embarrassed teenagers. "Please enjoy." "Well," Izuku said, sitting up a bit straighter in his seat. "Let's give this a try." "Yeah, I'm ready," Momo said as she leaned forward, Izuku quickly following her lead. With their faces only a few inches apart and flushed bright red, Izuku and Momo shared the heart-shaped straw. After taking a few gulps of the drink, both Izuku and Momo's eyes widened in surprise and they smiled at each other. "Wow, that's really good." "It really is," Izuku said, going in for another sip, which Momo gladly joined him in. It seemed like both teenagers forgot their earlier embarrassment as they happily gulped down the drink. When Izuku and Momo finally pulled away, their couple's drink was already half gone. "Good call, Momo." "Tea, thanks," Momo said happily as she brushed some hair out of her eyes. Soon, their server returned to take their food orders. After they placed their orders, Izuku and Momo made small talk, which she was thoroughly enjoying. She couldn't talk with a lot of people the way she talked with Izuku. As their conversation began to lull, Momo began to wring her hands and look down at her lap. "You know, Izuku, I was starting to get a bit worried. You were almost an hour late, and you're usually pretty punctual." "Ah, yeah, sorry about that," Izuku said with a nervous chuckle, rubbing the back of his head. "But something sort of happened when I stopped to get gas. An hour and a half earlier." "Okay, that should be good enough," Izuku muttered as he put the nozzle back onto the gas pump. "I'm making good time. I'll even get to Momo's house a little early." However, just as Izuku was about to get back into his car, he heard a commotion coming from the alley behind the gas station. Pausing for a moment, Izuku stared at the alley, feeling his hero instincts calling out to him. "I should at least check it out." Closing the door, Izuku made his way toward the alley. As he got closer, the commotion he was hearing sounded like two people arguing. Reaching the end of the alley, Izuku poked his head out and tried to assess what was happening. He spotted two people near some garbage cans in the center of the alley. One of them was a middle-aged man dressed in business attire, while the other appeared to be a girl around his age. However, instead of a simple argument, it appeared that the two of them were engaged in an altercation, both of them tugging on a briefcase. "Just give me the damned briefcase," the man yelled as he tried to yank it from the girl's grasp. The girl said nothing, merely grunting as she tried to wrestle the case free. "Rah, I've had enough of this." Huffing in frustration, the man kicked the girl in the stomach, causing her to gasp in pain and release her grip on the briefcase. Dusting himself off, the man pulled out a cell phone. "That'll teach you. Now, just sit there and don't move." Izuku had seen enough to know that he couldn't sit back any longer. Knowing that he'd get in trouble if he used one for all, Izuku decided to confront the man without using his quirk. Quickly sprinting down the alley, Izuku caught the man off guard when he suddenly tackled him to the ground, pinning his arms behind his back in a takedown All Might had taught him. "Oi, what the hell do you think you're doing? Get off me!" the man exclaimed as he thrashed around underneath Izuku. Seeing that he couldn't easily break free, the man huffed in frustration. "Look, I'm guessing you saw what just happened, but I don't want to hear it. You tried to steal this poor girl's case and even assaulted her," Izuku exclaimed, digging his knee into the man's back, which caused him to yelp in pain. Noticing the briefcase on the ground next to him, Izuku smiled and handed it to the girl. "Here you go, miss. This belongs to you." The girl simply stared at Izuku for several moments, her eyes wide in disbelief as her face began to flush bright red. The girl was fair-skinned and had a pretty face. She had inward-tilting yellow eyes with thin slit-like irises, somewhat resembling those of a cat, and her wide mouth was also quite feline, as her canines were pointed and longer than the rest of her teeth, giving her a somewhat vampiric appearance. Her hair was a pale, ash-blonde color and was styled into two messy buns, with numerous wild strands sticking out a straight fringe, and two chin-length side bangs framing her face. Her outfit consisted of a plain-looking school uniform with a kansai collar, both the skirt and the shirt dark blue with a double white trim, which was paired with a red scarf that she tied loosely below. Over this, she wore an oversized beige cardigan with a long hem and cuffs, and pockets on either side. She also sported knee-length black socks and dark brown outdoor school shoes. Hesitantly, the girl reached out and took the briefcase from Izuku. "I hope this guy didn't hurt you," Izuku said as the girl quickly shook her head, which caused Izuku to smile once again. The girl suddenly gasped and her face flushed even brighter red. "Well, that's good to hear. Hang tight, I'll call the cops and they'll deal with this creep." Pulling out his cell phone, Izuku began to dial. "My name's Izuku, by the way. What's your—" In the split second Izuku looked away to grab his phone. The girl had taken off running down the alley. "Hey, miss, where are you going?" "You damned idiot," the man exclaimed, watching as the girl disappeared around the corner. "That girl was trying to rob me. That was my briefcase you just handed to her." "What?" Izuku yelled as he quickly hopped off the man. Dashing in the direction the girl had run, Izuku quickly reached the end of the alley, which led out into a semi-crowded shopping district. Scanning the area, Izuku didn't see the girl anywhere, and there weren't any signs of commotion caused by someone fleeing. Cursing under his breath, Izuku returned to the man he had wrongly tackled. "Sir, I am so sorry about that. I had no idea she was—" "Ah, it's fine, kid. From what you saw, it probably did look like I was robbing that girl. I'd be surprised if you didn't try to intervene," the man said as he pressed a handkerchief against his cheek. Pulling the handkerchief away, the man groaned when he saw blood on it. "Damn it, I hope this won't leave a scar on my face." "Are you okay, sir?" Izuku asked, stepping up and examining the man's face. He gasped when he saw a clean cut along the man's cheek. Instantly, Izuku bowed his head. "I deeply apologize, sir. Not only did I allow you to be robbed, I also injured you." If you wish to press charges against me, I won't oppose. Whoa. Calm down, kid, you didn't do this, the man said as he pressed the handkerchief against his cheek once again. During our initial scuffle, that girl cut me with a knife or something. She pulled a knife on you, Izuku said in a surprised tone, stroking his chin. I'd say you got off lucky with just a cut to the cheek. Things could have gotten a lot worse. TCH, you're telling me. I almost think it was a good thing you showed up when you did. If you hadn't, who knows what that girl would have done? I don't even want to think about it, the man said as he released a heavy sigh. Hey kid, could you call the cops? I need to make some other calls. My wallet and some other personal stuff were in that briefcase. As Izuku called the police several blocks away, the girl he had assisted in her robbery hid behind a dumpster. A gray, sludge-like material was splattered on the ground around the girl as she leaned against a wall, panting lightly. Finally catching her breath, the girl's face flushed once again when she remembered the green-haired boy who had come to her aid like a knight in shining armor. Ha, I'm sure I'll see you again real soon, the girl said with a large, twisted smile and hearts in her eyes, tightly hugging the briefcase against her chest, a blood-stained knife clutched in her hand. Izuku. Back in the present. You always seem to be getting yourself in trouble, Izuku, Momo chastised as she released a light sigh, pinching the bridge of her nose. Well, I'm just glad you didn't get hurt. So, do you think the police will be able to catch that girl? I doubt it, Izuku said in a frustrated tone, playing with the straw of their couple's drink. It's almost like she disappeared into thin air. No witnesses saw her, and she wasn't picked up on any security cameras. If I had to guess, she has a quirk that allowed her to evade police. That makes the most sense, Momo said as she paused to take another sip of their drink. But it's best to let the police handle things now. We're not heroes yet, so any vigilante justice will get us in big trouble. Raising her head, Momo gave Izuku a stern look. Right, Izuku? Yeah, I know. All Might would be so pissed if I pulled any more vigilante stunts, and the last thing I want is to disappoint him, Izuku said, releasing a light sigh as he leaned back in his seat. It's just so frustrating. I helped that girl commit a crime. Someone could have seriously got hurt. Hey, don't put yourself down, Izuku. You did what you thought was right. You thought you were helping someone in trouble, Momo said with a small smile as she leaned across the table and gently cupped Izuku's cheek. You're always willing to help those in need, despite the possible danger. Momo locked eyes with Izuku, love and longing evident in her gaze. Like when you saved a girl who was about to be kidnapped, it's one of the things I love most about you. I couldn't let those bad men hurt such a beautiful girl, Izuku said, reaching up and gripping Momo's hand, which caused her face to flush bright red. I'm so happy I followed that trail of coins that day, Momo. And I'm so happy you're the one that saved me, Izuku, Momo said as she caressed Izuku's cheek with her thumb. As Momo continued to stare into Izuku's eyes, her face began to inch closer to his. Soon, her lips were almost grazing against Izuku's. Don't hesitate. Just go for it. Kiss him. So, are you two lovebirds ready to order? Momo yelped in surprise and practically launched back to her side of the booth when their waitress suddenly returned to take their meal orders. Seeing the flushed looks on Izuku and Momo's faces, the waitress giggled. I apologize. Was I interrupting something? I could come back in a minute. And no, it's fine, Izuku said as he coughed into his fist to try and regain his composure. I think we're ready. After that immensely embarrassing moment, Izuku and Momo both placed their orders and the waitress left. But this time, instead of pleasant small talk, Izuku and Momo could barely look at each other without getting embarrassed, their near kiss creating an awkward tension between them both. Soon enough, their waitress returned with their food, and this seemed to ease the tension a bit. As they ate, Momo and Izuku managed to look at each other and began to talk again. By the time they were finished, The pleasant mode their date had started off with had returned. Once they finished eating and paying for their meal, which Momo offered, but Izuku insisted that he be the one that paid, they headed toward their next stop. To Momo's pleasant surprise, Izuku took her to pop-up art exhibit that had been touring across Japan. She had been trying to get the other girls in class to go with her, but none of them were interested. The exhibit had both modern and classical paintings, along with dozens of various sculptures. Momo clung to Izuku's arm as they walked through the exhibit, stopping at every display. Momo had to admit that she didn't expect Izuku to be so interested in her lengthy and in-depth explanations of the art pieces. No matter how much she talked his ear off, Izuku never seemed bored or annoyed, which Momo greatly appreciated. Eventually leaving the art exhibit, Izuku and Momo headed toward their final stop on their date. However, when they pulled into the parking lot, Momo was expecting them to end up at what seemed to be an arcade. "Is this really where we're stopping?" Momo asked in a confused tone as she looked at Izuku. "You know I'm not very good at games." "It's fine, this will be fun," Izuku exclaimed with a bright smile, getting out of the car and dashing around to open the door for Momo. After giving Izuku one last skeptical glance, Momo released a light sigh and exited the car. "All right, let's head inside." Walking into the arcade, Momo was immediately bombarded by a wave of sounds and flashing lights that caught her off guard. "So, what should we do first?" Maybe we could," Momo muttered as she gazed at the dozens of arcade machines, not knowing which one to choose. She had never been to an arcade before, so she had no idea what most of the games were. Seeing a large machine that had a pad with arrows on it, Momo pointed toward it. "How about that one?" "Revolution of Dance? Good choice," Izuku said, before grabbing Momo's hand and gently pulling her toward the machine. Momo's face flushed slightly as she gave Izuku's hand a quick squeeze. When they reached the machine, Momo stared up at the flashing screen filled with arrows and blaring energetic pop music. Hesitantly, Momo stepped onto the pad with Izuku, looking down and spotting several arrows pointing in various directions. Izuku slipped a few tokens into the game and its screen changed, showing an extensive list of what appeared to be song choices. What song should we pick? Any suggestions, Momo?" Momo muttered as she stared at the screen, feeling somewhat overwhelmed by the seemingly endless amount of choices. "I don't really know how to play this game, so how about we start with something easy?" "No problem, I know just the song," Izuku said with a smile, scrolling toward the top of the list into a section of songs that were labeled as beginner. Finding the song he wanted, Izuku selected it and a pleasant, slow pop beat began to play. Stepping beside Momo and gently gripping her hips, Izuku positioned her in the center of the arrows on her side of the pad. Momo's face flushed slightly as she allowed Izuku to move her into place. "Okay, for this game, you need to watch the screen and step on the correct arrows on the pad. The better you time your steps, the more points you get." "Okay, I think I understand," Momo said as she watched a sequence of arrows start to flow up to the screen. When the first arrow reached a line at the top of the screen, Momo stepped on the corresponding arrow on the dance pad. Her eyes lit up when a satisfying sound cue played and her points went up. A smile spread across Momo's face as stepped on the next arrow. "I'm doing it. Are you watching, Izuku?" "You're doing great, Momo," Izuku said with a satisfied smile, moving back over to his side of the pad and joining in as well. As the song's tempo increased, the arrows began to fly up the screen a bit faster. Momo squeaked in surprise, quickly stepping on the appropriate arrow on the pad. The more arrows you step on in a row, the higher you'll build up your combo. With a higher combo, you'll earn more points and a better grading when the song is over. "Wait, we get graded on this?" Momo exclaimed in shock as she turned her head to gawk at Izuku, causing her to miss several arrows in a row. Hearing the game buzz and chastise her mistakes, Momo yelped in surprise and went back to stepping on the pad. "I didn't know our performance would be evaluated." "Relax, Momo," It's just for fun," Izuku said with a smirk, swiftly moving from spot to spot on the dance pad, quickly racking up more points. The song's tempo increased once again, and the arrows were now dashing up the screen. Momo's eyes widened as she hopped around the dance pad, desperately trying to hit the arrows in time. After a few more seconds, the song began to conclude and arrows stopped appearing on the screen. Letting out a light exhale, Izuku glanced over and saw that Momo was panting slightly. Just then, the music stopped completely. "Well, let's see how we did." Momo said nothing as she stared intently at the screen, watching as the game tallied up their scores. She watched as the numbers climbed higher and higher before hers suddenly stopped. But Izuku's kept rising. When the score finally stopped increasing, Izuku's dwarfed Momo's. Then came their grades and Momo bit her bottom lip in anticipation. However, when her grade popped onto the screen, she gasped in horror. "A C? I've never gotten anything below an A in my entire life. And you got an S. Wait, is that good? S is below C." "Yes, it's very good. S is the highest grade you can get. In fact, I got a perfect score," Izuku lightly bragged with a grin, gesturing toward the screen. Momo's eyes widened slightly when she saw that Izuku had achieved a perfect combo and received the highest score possible for this specific song. "Don't get too down about the scores, Momo. I only did so well because Mina loves to dance and I play this game with her a lot." "Again," Momo muttered, which caused Izuku to quirk an eyebrow. "I want to play again. I will not accept such a low grade. I know that I can do better." Izuku couldn't help but chuckle, admiring Momo's determination. However, as he was about to reselect the song, Momo stopped him. "No, I want a harder song this time." "Oh, I like the confidence," Izuku said, scrolling up to the intermediate difficulty songs. Sparing one last glance at his date, Izuku started the song. "Try to keep up." Instead of a slow start like the previous song, the one Izuku had selected was fast right from the beginning. The arrows began to shoot up the screen, surprising Momo with how quick they were. But after playing the game for the first time, Momo understood what she had to do. So, despite the song's speed, Momo managed to hit most of the arrows, but her timing was slightly off. By the time the song had ended, Momo was panting heavily with sweat dripping off her brow. Wiping away her sweat, Momo watched as her score continued to rise. However, she cursed under her breath when her score stopped climbing and she received an A ranking. "Wow, that's impressive, Momo. Going from C to a rank after just playing once, and on a harder song too. You're a natural at this," Izuku said as he let out a low whistle, looking at Momo's score. Releasing a light sigh, Izuku stretched a bit. "Well, why don't we?" "No," Momo said, reaching over and gripping Izuku's sleeve. Huffing in frustration, Momo pointed at the screen, more specifically at Izuku's score. "You still got a perfect. I won't settle for anything less than S rank." "Momo, you don't have to." Izuku stopped mid-sentence when he saw the fiery passion burning in Momo's eyes. "Okay, then, we'll keep playing." However, wanting to see how far Momo could go, Izuku scrolled down the list to the advanced songs. "But how about we crank it up to the max?" "I'm ready if you are," Momo replied with a smirk, causing Izuku to grin and nod his head. Watching Izuku press the button to start the song, Momo took a deep breath and closely watched the screen. A split second later, the song started with a blisteringly fast tempo. Momo's eyes widened in surprise as she watched the arrows begin to literally shoot up the screen in larger and more complex patterns. With her legs moving like a blur, Momo did her best to hit all the arrows with near-perfect timing. Feeling confident, Momo watched her score and combo climb higher and higher. However, as the song entered full swing and began to move even faster, Momo heard the familiar sound of crackling electricity. Glancing over, she frowned when she spotted green sparks flying off Izuku's body. "Hey, you're using your quirk. That's cheating." "Really?" There's no rules that say you can't use your quirk, Izuku countered with a smirk, using only about 2% of one for all's power to swiftly bound across the pad, effortlessly hitting all of his arrows. Why don't use your quirk too? TCH, if you're gonna play dirty, then so will I, Momo said as she pressed a hand to the exposed skin on her arm, a flash of light radiating. A split second later, Momo materialized a literal third and fourth leg, similar to an artificial limb. With the help of her extra appendages, Momo was able to easily keep up with the song's blazing pace. You can do this, Momo. I'll get that S rank for sure. By now, a small crowd had gathered around the machine, watching and cheering Izuku and Momo on. As the song entered its climax, the arrows began to move up the screen at a seemingly unfair speed. But, with the help of their quirks, both Izuku and Momo managed to keep pace, neither of them breaking their combos. After nearly a full minute of this ridiculous tempo, the song finally reached its conclusion, with Momo and Izuku both hitting the final arrow with perfect timing. Once the song was over, the crowd who had been enthralled by the performance eagerly watched as their scores were tallied. After a few moments, a triumphant jingle rang out and a large perfect flashed on the screen. Moments later, Momo and Izuku's grades had been revealed, both of them achieving an SS rank. Instantly, the entire crowd burst out in cheers and congratulations. Yes, we did it, Momo exclaimed, jumping several times in excitement, before lunging forward and embracing Izuku in a tight hug. That was amazing, Izuku. Why, yeah, great job, Momo. Izuku stuttered out with his face near neon red as Momo hugged him, her large bosoms squashing against his chest. Too nervous to return Momo's embrace, Izuku's arms stuck out to the sides awkwardly. Glancing over Momo's shoulder, Izuku noticed that the small that had been watching their performance was simply staring at them. Momo, people are kind of staring at us. HM? Momo muttered in a confused tone as she turned her head. Noticing the crowd of people gawking at them, Momo yelped in surprise and practically leapt away from Izuku, her face flushed in embarrassment. We should go play something else. Good idea, Izuku said with a small smile, wrapping an arm around Momo's shoulders and leading her away from the revolution of dance machine. Once they were in a quieter and less crowded area of the arcade, Izuku released Momo. So, what do you want to play next? After their exciting dance session, Izuku and Momo played a series of more traditional games. From racers to shooters, some head-to-head competition in a few fighting games, and even some classic whack-a-mole. Despite being a bit apprehensive at first, the more she played and spent time with Izuku, the more Momo she seemed to be enjoying herself. Izuku even convinced Momo to take some commemorative photos from a photo booth. She was a bit embarrassed at first, but after a few snaps, Momo warmed up a bit, taking a few goofier photos with her date. As they left the photo booth, Momo smiled as she gazed at the strip of pictures they had taken. Well, I think it's about time we get out of here, Izuku said. He raised his arms and stretched slightly. Although, there is one last thing I wanted to do before we leave. Oh, Momo said in an intrigued tone, quirking an eyebrow. What did you have in mind? Follow me, Emilde, Izuku said in a sarcastically suave tone as he offered Momo his arm. Chuckling to herself, Momo played along and looped her arm with Izuku's, allowing him to lead her through the arcade. After passing dozens of different games, they stopped in front of a row of machines close to the entrance. All right, we're here. A claw machine? Momo asked, staring at the various toys and stuffed animals littered behind the glass display. Oh, Izuku, you don't have to get me anything from this. These games are designed to take your... Izuku chastised with a smirk as he wagged his finger. Just tell me what you want and I'll get it for you. Fine, it seems you're determined to do this, Momo said, releasing a light sigh as she stared at the litany of prizes the machine held, searching for anything that caught her eye. After a few moments, she spotted an adorable teddy bear that was wearing glasses and a graduation cap, holding a small diploma. But it was in the center of the machine, surrounded by several other stuffed animals. She was about to look for something easier to get, but Izuku seemed confident and she wanted to believe that he could get it. "Okay, I want that teddy bear in the middle. The one in the graduation cap." "Oh my, right in the middle, and with a bunch of other prizes in the way. You're really putting my skills to the test." "But," Izuku said as he flipped a coin into the air before snatching and inserting it into the machine. "It's what my girlfriend wants, so I can't let her down." The claw machine whirred to life and lights flashed after Izuku inserted his coin. An upbeat song began to play as Izuku began to press the buttons to move the claw. "All right, let's do this." Momo was surprised at how focused Izuku seemed to be, intently watching the claw's every movement, seemingly mapping the optimal path out in his head. In a matter of moments, Izuku had positioned the claw above the teddy bear Momo wanted. Izuku seemingly took a moment to ensure that the claw was in the correct place, making several micro-adjustments before he seemed satisfied. Pressing a large, red button, the claw began to descend. Both Izuku and Momo watched in anticipation as the claw went lower and lower. Then, the moment of truth came. The opened claw landed on the scholarly teddy bear. However, Momo was worried when she noticed that the claw would be grabbing the bear's graduation cap and not the bear itself. But her worries were put to rest when she saw the confident smirk on Izuku's face. Suddenly, the claw closed, and to Momo's surprise, it perfectly gripped the teddy bear's graduation cap. A split second later, the claw began to rise, bringing the teddy bear with it. "Whoa!" Momo exclaimed in excitement, lunging forward and hugging Izuku's arm. "You did it, Izuku." "Don't start cheering just yet," Izuku said as he watched the teddy bear begin to wiggle around within the claw's grasp. When the claw suddenly stopped rising higher, the teddy bear violently jerked around and looked as if it was about to slip free. "It's not over yet." Momo tightly gripped Izuku's arm as she watched her chosen prize shake around. However, she breathed a sigh of relief when the teddy bear stopped moving and the claw began to move toward the prize chute. After a few moments, the claw released the teddy bear and it fell directly into the chute. Immediately both Izuku and Momo cheered in excitement. Bending down, Izuku reached into the slot and retrieved his prize. "Here you go, Momo," Izuku said with a bright grin, handing the teddy bear to the raven-haired girl. "This little guy is almost as cute as you." Momo said nothing for several moments as she took the teddy bear, staring at it for several moments before hugging it against her chest. Raising her head, Momo locked eyes with Izuku, her face flushed slightly. Then, without warning, Momo lunged forward and captured Izuku's lips in a passionate kiss. Briefly caught off guard by Momo's bold action, Izuku soon recovered and returned the kiss. Before things could get too heated, Momo suddenly broke their lip lock and stepped back. "Thank you for showing me such an amazing time, Izuku. This has been a perfect date. But I don't want it to end yet." "I don't either," Izuku said, picking up on what Momo was alluding to as he stepped forward and gently gripped her hand. "Do you want to head back to your place?" "We can't. My parents are home," Momo replied as she slowly shook her head. "What about yours?" "No good either. My mom is home too," Izuku answered, releasing a frustrated sigh as he furrowed his brow. After a few moments, Izuku had an idea and gently squeezed Momo's hand. "I think there are some hotels nearby. If you get what I mean, we could try one of them." "Yeah, that works for me," Momo said nervously as she awkwardly shuffled from foot to foot. "So, should we get out of here?" "I'm ready whenever you are," Izuku said, locking eyes with Momo for several moments before she took a breath and nodded her head. Knowing what was likely going to transpire, Izuku gently tugged Momo's arm and led her out of the arcade. Once they were back in Izuku's car, he quickly pulled out his phone and looked up the closest place they could have some private, intimate time. It didn't take him long to find a nice-looking place with decent reviews. Figuring that it was likely their best option, Izuku started the car's engine and drove them to the establishment. And, in less than 15 minutes, both Izuku and Momo were standing outside a love hotel. "Well, here we are." "Yes, we're here," Momo said in a somewhat anxious tone as she tightly gripped Izuku's arm, gazing up at the building in front of them. If Momo didn't know any better, she would have assumed that this was any old hotel. But knowing what it truly was and why they were there filled her with a nervous energy that made her feel like she was floating. Should we go inside?" "Before we do this," Izuku said, turning to face Momo and gently gripping both of her hands as he locked eyes with her. "Are you absolutely sure, Momo? I'm totally fine waiting if you're not ready. We can move at whatever pace you want." Momo said nothing for several moments as she mulled over what Izuku had said, her brow furrowing as she thought. But she didn't have to think for very long before a small smile spread across her face. Leaning forward, Momo gave Izuku a quick, tender kiss. "It's sweet of you to ask, Izuku, but I'm ready. I want to take this next step with you." Izuku simply nodded and led Momo into the Love Hotel. The receptionist was almost obnoxiously nice, constantly remarking on how cute Izuku and Momo looked together as she booked their room. Once everything was set, the receptionist handed them their room key and wished them a fun time, giggling as she watched the embarrassed couple walk off. After a somewhat awkward elevator ride, Izuku and Momo were soon outside their room. After they exchanged a brief look, Izuku unlocked their door and stepped inside. Their room was remarkably clean, decently large, and quite luxurious, with various amenities throughout. But the room's most striking features were its red mood lighting and the large, heart-shaped bed in the center of the room. After taking a moment to explore the room, Momo discovered that they had a very nice bathroom. Izuku suggested they both shower after getting all sweaty from the dancing they had done. Momo insisted that Izuku wash up first, and after he was finished, he awkwardly sat on the edge of the bed dressed in just a bathrobe and his underwear. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest as he listened to the sounds of the shower. Hearing the shower suddenly stop, Izuku sharply inhaled through his nose. A few moments later, Momo walked out of the bathroom, her long, black hair still damp and not tied up in her usual ponytail. As Momo walked over, Izuku couldn't stop himself from gazing at her alluring body. Her freshly washed skin seemed to glow in the room's dim lighting, and he could still faintly smell the sweet-smelling soap she had used. Izuku felt his entire body heating up when he noticed that the front of Momo's bathrobe was partially open, much like her hero costume, giving him a tantalizing look at her cleavage. Releasing a content sigh, Momo sat down on the bed next to Izuku. "That was nice. I was sticky because of all the sweating we did and felt kind of gross," Momo said as she laid back on the bed and stared up at the ceiling. With a faint blush, Momo turned her head to look at Izuku. "So, where do we go from here? I have no experience in this area." "Just let me take the lead," Izuku said, moving across the bed so that he was on top of Momo, straddling her waist. Leaning forward, Izuku gently gripped Momo's hands and pinned them down on the bed next to her head. Izuku stared into Momo's eyes for several moments, both of their faces flushed red with arousal. Momo's gaze was surprisingly sultry and appeared as if she was beckoning him closer. "I can't hold back any longer." Without any hesitation, Izuku leaned forward and captured Momo's lips. This, however, was different than their earlier lip lock. This lip lock was filled with lust and a fiery passion that had built up throughout their date. It didn't take Momo long to wrap her arms around Izuku's neck, pulling him closer. His additional experience allowed him to overpower her. Eventually, the lovers had to separate and take a breath, a thin trail of saliva still connecting their lips. As Izuku hovered over Momo, his eyes roamed over her erotic body. Her robe had almost completely opened, exposing nearly all of her naked body, only her most sensual areas still hidden. Izuku gulped as he stared at Momo's impressive chest, her tantalizing bosoms heaving as she panted slightly, just barely still concealed by her robe. "Go ahead, Izuku. You can touch them," Momo suddenly said, snapping the bewildered man out of his thoughts. Izuku stared at Momo, almost unable to believe what he had just heard, causing a small smirk to spread across her face. "You've stared at them enough. I know you want to." "Sorry about that. I couldn't help myself. They're just so," Izuku started to say but began to mumble when he couldn't come up with the right words, his face starting to flush red in embarrassment. A cute laugh escaped Momo's lips as she watched Izuku fumble over his words, but she quickly pressed a finger against his lips to silence him. Locking eyes once again, Izuku realized that Momo was beckoning him to continue. Knowing that this was an opportunity he couldn't pass up, Izuku pulled Momo's robe fully open, revealing her full bosoms in all their glory. Izuku's eyes widened as he stared at the beautiful, round orbs of flesh. "Holy shit, they're amazing." "I know you're probably wondering, especially since you've already been intimate with Ochako," Momo muttered, turning her head in a pointless attempt to hide her blushing face. Izuku couldn't help but notice a somewhat smug, satisfied smile spread across Momo's face. "Mine are H-cups." "Oh my god, she's even bigger than Ochako," Izuku thought as his eyes widened in shock at this sudden revelation. Unable to hold back any longer, Izuku reached out and gently gripped Momo's expansive bosoms. As Izuku continued to knead and massage her mounds of flesh, his thumbs teasing her, Momo bit her finger as she tried to hold back her sounds. Leaning forward, Izuku began to keys on Momo's neck as he continued to grope her bosoms. Hearing Momo and seeing her writhe in pleasure caused Izuku's manhood to quickly harden. "You're so beautiful, Momo. It looks like you're quite aroused already," Momo said, raising her knee and gently rubbing it against Izuku. Izuku hissed in pleasure as Momo seemed to enjoy teasing him. "Maybe I could help you with that." Izuku was caught off guard when Momo suddenly seemed to take charge, flipping them both over so that she was now on top of him. Without warning, Momo ripped Izuku's robe open, revealing his muscular chest and the large erect tent. "I must say, I'm getting quite excited. I studied several erotic movies to help prepare for this moment." With one quick yank, Momo pulled Izuku down, causing him to spring free. It was now Momo's turn for her eyes to widen in surprise as she stared in awe at Izuku's manhood. Outside of a few adult videos and medical textbooks, she had never seen it before. So, seeing one so close and caused her face to instantly flush bright red. Momo could tell that Izuku was on the bigger side, but not monstrously huge. Looking up, Momo locked eyes with Izuku and saw that he was staring at her expectantly, waiting for what she was going to do next. Remembering the erotic video she had watched, Momo slowly reached out and gripped Izuku with one hand. She was surprised at how warm it was. "It seems like Izuku is enjoying this so far, but now it's time I go to the next stage," Momo thought as she slowed the pace. She gazed at Izuku's member and licked her lips. "All those girls in the videos I watched did now, so I have to at least try it too." Izuku knew what was coming. Momo wanted to take all of Izuku into her, but her lack of experience prevented her from doing that. But whatever her mouth couldn't reach, Momo used her hands too. Initially, Momo thought that she would hate giving fellatio. It seemed dirty to her. But maybe because it was with the man she loved, Momo soon found it extremely erotic, and his sounds caused her to feel even more aroused. After a few minutes, Momo got more accustomed and began to pick up the pace. Izuku could only take all of this stimulation for a bit longer before he felt an intense pleasure welling up in the pit of his stomach. "Wow, Momo, it feels amazing. I'm so close. I'm about to," Izuku said through grit teeth. Unable to hold back any longer, Izuku rapidly bucked his hips several times, feeling his body start to tingle. "Momo, I'm coming." Once Izuku's blast had died down, he slowly pulled himself out, leaving her lips with an audible pop. Izuku and Momo both panted slightly as they tried to catch their breaths. Momo's cheeks were flushed as she licked her lips, swallowing the rest of Izuku's seed, seeming to bask in the unique taste. This is quite the distinct flavor. I would have expected to hate something so vulgar, Momo said in an intrigued tone, tilting her head slightly as she smacked her lips. After a moment, she moaned and stared at Izuku with half-lidded eyes. Izuku could feel his manhood instantly come back to life as Momo leaned against him and rested her weighty bosoms against his chest. Leaning in closer, Momo gave Izuku a sultry smirk that caused his heart to skip a beat. But vulgarity really turned me on. Shit, Momo, that was so hot. Izuku grunted before he suddenly flipped them over, causing Momo to giggle in amusement. As Izuku hovered over Momo, he marveled at how beautiful she looked. Her body was on full display as her long, black hair splayed out on the bed. "Can you blame me?" Momo muttered, her face flushing near neon red as she averted her gaze. "My only experience with anything like this is when I'd play with myself." Shivers ran through Momo's body skin as Izuku's hand traveled lower down her body, running over her hips and down her toned thighs. Everywhere Izuku touched seemed to send jolts of pleasure through Momo's body, creating goosebumps across her skin. Izuku's hand eventually reached her womanhood. Using his prior experience with Ochako, Izuku quickly found Momo's sweet spots and had her squirming and writhing around. After a few minutes, Izuku decided to amp up Momo's pleasure. Momo was sent over the edge into her orgasm as she pinched her. Momo's entire body began to convulse slightly as her blast shot through her like jolts of electricity. Momo's hips raised off the bed as her juices gushed from her womanhood, coating Izuku's face as he did his best to lap them up. After a few more moments of intense pleasure, Momo seemed to relax and pant heavily, using her arm to cover her face. "Looks like you really enjoyed that, Momo," Izuku said in a satisfied tone. After what felt like an eternity, both their blasts subsided and Izuku slowly pulled. When Izuku pulled his manhood out, some of his and Momo's juices began to leak out of her womanhood, trailing down her thigh. With a content sigh, Izuku plopped down on the bed, panting lightly as he stared up at the ceiling. Momo crawled over and joined Izuku, resting her head against his chest and placing a hand over his heart. That was incredible. Just wow," Izuku breathed out as "I love you so much, Momo." "I love you too, Izuku," Momo said with a bright smile, before reaching up and gently running her hand across Izuku's cheek. "This was a perfect date. I can't thank you enough, Izuku." "Well, you're special to me, Momo, and I wanted to make sure you enjoyed yourself," Izuku said with a large smile of his own as he hugged Momo a bit tighter, inhaling the sweet scent of her shampoo. As Izuku simply enjoyed embracing Momo, he gently rubbed her shoulder. "This whole sharing thing is going to be weird, but I'm glad we're giving it a try." "I'm glad too. I just want to be with you, Izuku. I don't care if I have to share you, especially if it's with my best friends," Momo said, leaning forward and giving Izuku a quick peck on the cheek. "As great as today's date was, I was wondering, why did you pick the places you did, Izuku?" "Well, I wanted to take you to spots I knew you'd enjoy, but also more typical date locations," Izuku replied, which caused Momo to quirk an eyebrow in confusion. Chuckling, Izuku ruffled the top of Momo's head. "Look, Momo, let's be real. You don't have the same experiences as me and the other girls. You know." "Ah, I see," Momo said as she chuckled herself, her face flushing slightly. "Growing up in such a wealthy family, I suppose I would have different expectations." "Exactly. I figured you've been to enough fancy, expensive dinners and elegant parties," Izuku said, pulling Momo a bit closer and hugging her close. "So, I wanted to take you to more low-key date spots. I hope that was okay." "It's more okay. Thank you, Izuku, for not treating me differently than the other girls. I would have hated it if you acted like I was some princess who needed to be pampered and spoiled. Your kindness and compassion are of the things I love most about you," Momo said with a loving smile. The following day, Class 1A. "All right, everyone, pay attention," Tenya exclaimed as he stood at the front of the classroom. "Take your seats. We're about to begin the morning's homeroom period." "You're the only one who's not in their seat," Kyoka joked, causing several of the other students to chuckle in amusement. "Why don't you sit down, Ida?" "Morning." A sudden voice coming from the front door surprised the students of Class 1A. However, what shocked them even more was that the person who spoke appeared to be their homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa, his face completely covered in bandages and one of his arms in a sling. "Everyone, to your seats, that includes you, Ida." "I'm glad to see you're all right, Sensei," Ida said as he walked over to his seat and sat back down. "You made a swift recovery." "I don't think you can really call that all right," Ochako said in a concerned tone, watching as Aizawa took his place at the podium in front of the class. "Are you sure you should be back already, Sensei? Don't concern yourselves over me. After all, the battle hasn't really ended for you all yet," Aizawa said cryptically, which caused the students to whisper and speculate amongst themselves. "UA, University's annual sports exhibition is right around the corner." UA, University Conference Room. "I did an extensive search through our database for the name Shigaraki and his quirk, which seems to disintegrate whatever he touches," a police detective explained as he scanned through a stack of papers he was holding. "I scoured through everyone aged in their 20s and 30s, but I couldn't find any matches. The same goes for this Kurogiri with the warp gate quirk. So, either they've never been hit by the census or they're using aliases. In any case, as far as we know, they're basically ghosts. They obviously never submitted their quirk registration forms." "Damn it. So what you're getting at is that we've got nothing to go on," Snipe said in a frustrated tone, releasing a heavy sigh as he leaned back in his seat. "And once their ringleader, the hell did you say his name was? Shigaraki, right? Well, once he heals from those gunshots, he'll be back to bite us in the ass." "The ringleader, eh?" All Might muttered as he stroked his chin, his brow furrowing a bit. "I wonder." "What is it, All Might?" Nezu asked, perking up a bit in his seat. "Do you have some insight for us?" "Now that I've had some time to process what happened, nothing about what happened seems normal. Just look at how meticulously they planned everything out. I have to imagine, under normal circumstances, they wouldn't have tried something so audacious," All Might explained as he clasped his hands on top of the table, his narrowing slightly. "We're talking about someone who, out of nowhere, started spouting some ridiculous ideology. And, while he didn't reveal anything about his own quirk, he wouldn't shut up about this Nemu thing's abilities. And when things weren't going his way, he started throwing a tantrum. Well, I suppose the constant boasting of the Namu's quirks was meant to provoke me." "That is odd," Nezu agreed as he slowly nodded his head. "It seems particularly foolish in a battle against heroes to reveal one's quirks and lose the element of surprise. Running his mouth about some plausible, yet diluted ideology, bragging about the shiny, new toy he brought." All Might continued, tapping his finger on the tabletop as he looked at his fellow teachers and staff members, and naively thinking that everything would go just the way he wanted. If we think logically about how this attack was carried out, this Shigaraki person is nothing but a spoiled man-child. Rumi spat out in a tone that barely held back how pissed off she seemed to be. Her red eyes narrowed dangerously as she leaned against a wall near the back of the conference room. The Rabbit Pro Hero's arms were crossed underneath her chest as she tightly gripped her elbows, her muscles flexing slightly. He couldn't hide how much of goddamn brat he is. That attitude he had, where he thought that he could do whatever the hell he wanted, really pissed me off. So what you're getting at is that we're likely dealing with a kid who has too much power, Midnight chimed in, looking over the incident report that was laid out in front of her. Maybe he never received general quirk counseling when he was in elementary school? What in Sam Hill does that have to do with anything? Snipe asked as he sighed once again, resting his head on his palm. All I know is, we need to deal with this varmint quickly, or else he'll become a real thorn in our side. We apprehended a total of 72 total villains after the attack, the police detective said, tapping the papers he was holding with the back of his hand. They were mostly bottom-feeding thugs, but the real question is, why would so many of them agree to follow the orders of some man-child? A man-child, huh? Nezu contemplated as he slightly leaned back in his chair, staring up at the ceiling. In certain ways, he's a lot like our students. He has potential to grow. Now, if only he had a proper mentor to guide him. Same time, Class 1A's homeroom. All right, everyone, pay attention, Tenya exclaimed, standing at the front of the classroom. Take your seats. We're about to begin the morning's homeroom period. You're the only one who's not in their seat. Kyoka joked, which caused several of the other students to chuckle in amusement. Why don't you sit down, Ida? Morning. A sudden voice coming from the front door surprised the students of Class 1A. However, what shocked them even more was that the person who spoke appeared to be their homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa, his face completely covered in bandages and one of his arms in a sling. Everyone, to your seats, that includes you, Ida. I'm glad to see you're all right, Sensei, Ida said as he walked over to his seat and sat back down. You made a swift recovery. I don't think you can really call that all right, Ochako said in a concerned tone, watching as Aizawa took his place at the podium in front of the class. Are you sure you should be back already, Sensei? Don't concern yourselves over me. After all, the battle hasn't really ended for you all yet, Aizawa said cryptically, which caused the students to whisper and speculate amongst themselves. UA, University's annual sports exhibition is right around the corner. A sports exhibition? Mina parroted, quirking an eyebrow as her antennae twitched slightly. That sounds surprisingly normal. Oi, we just had a bunch of villains knock down our damn front door, Bakugo said with a scowl as he drummed his fingers along the top of his desk. Is holding some exhibition really a good idea? This event is necessary. We need to show that UA, University's crisis management protocols are sound. At least, that's what I've been told. Compared to previous years, they're seriously upping the police presence 5s as much apparently. But that's beside the point, Aizawa explained, looking over his class as he locked eyes with several students. Our sports exhibition will be the greatest opportunity you have to show off your quirk and skills. You'll have most of the eyes in the country on you. So, this is not an event we can cancel because of a few villains. Man, it still doesn't seem like a good idea to me, Minta muttered in a shaky voice as he tightly gripped the edge of his desk. We shouldn't be worrying about some exhibition. Our sports exhibition is one of the biggest events in Japan, Aizawa continued, dismissing Minta's concerns with a shake of his head. We used to treat the Olympics as the world's sports exhibition. When they'd come around, the entire country would get caught up in the excitement. But as you all know, that event has shrunk down in scale considerably and is now a shell of its former self. And as far as Japan is concerned, UA, University's sports exhibition has completely taken its place. All the top heroes in the country will be watching, Momo spoke up as she sat a bit straighter in her seat. They'll definitely be scouting promising recruits for their hero agencies. They'll be looking to hire us on as sidekicks once we graduate, Kaminari said with a smirk, snapping his fingers, which caused a small spark of electricity. I'll have to put on a show for everyone watching. You seem to forget that a lot of those sidekicks never end up breaking out and going solo. They end up being stuck as sidekicks forever, Kyoka added as she glanced over at Kaminari, causing him to click his tongue in disappointment. That'll be you if you're not careful, you scatterbrain. It's to be expected that you'll gain some valuable experience and a nice boost in popularity if you end up being picked by a big-name hero, Aizawa continued as he gazed out at his students, ensuring that he had their full attention. But you must remember that your time is limited. Go out there and show the pros what you're made of, and you'll blaze a brighter future for yourself. This opportunity only comes once a year, so give it everything you've got. If you all want to be pro heroes, this is an event you can't miss. Several hours later, University's cafeteria. Man, those villains attacking the training facility was exciting, Kirishima said in an excited tone, a large grin spreading across his face. But I'm seriously getting pumped now. If we show our stuff here, that's a big step toward becoming a pro hero, Siro said as he crossed his arms and nodded his head in agreement. We've got to go all out. Man, everyone is getting excited, Izuku said, poking at his food as he watched the students around them chatter about the sports exhibition. It looks like they really took what Aizawa-sensei said to heart. Aren't you excited too, Izuku-chan? Tsuyu asked as she set her tray of food down and sat across from the green-haired man. This is a very big event for us. Of course he's excited, Ochako exclaimed, practically slamming her tray down as she gazed at her friends, a surprisingly fiery determination burning in her eyes. At the sports exhibition, we'll all do our best. What's up with your face, Ochako-chan? Tsuyu asked and pressed a finger to her chin. I've never seen you like this before. Maybe it's her time of, Minta started to say, but was cut off when Tsuyu's tongue suddenly lashed out and slapped him across the face. Oh, what the hell, Tsuyu? Minta-chan, you do not want to finish that sentence, Tsuyu said as she gazed at Minta with her large, unblinking eyes, causing him to wince in fear. It was then that Minute noticed that the other girls at the table were glaring at him as well. Trust me, it won't end well for you. Got it, I'll shut up now, Minta said in a shaky tone, rapidly nodding his head before he took his food and went to sit with some of the other male students. Good, now that he's gone, Tsuyu said as she turned back toward the rest of the group. What's got you all worked up, Ochako-chan? Well, it's just like Aizawa-sensei said, the sports exhibition will be a great way to show our skills and maybe even impress some pro heroes, Ochako replied, finally sitting down next to Tsuyu. A faint blush of embarrassment spread across Ochako's face as she began to rub the back of her head. And I just really need to make a good impression and get scouted. Oh, why are you getting all flustered for, Ochako? Mina asked with a grin as she reached across the table and patted her friend on the shoulder. You see, Tsuyu, one of the main reasons Ochako wants to become a pro hero is to make Boku bucks. Seriously, Mina? Momo said, releasing an exasperated sigh as she noticed Ochako's face flush even brighter red, now fidgeting her seat. Did you have to put it so bluntly? For real, Mina, Kyoka added before she paused to take a bite from the sandwich she had grabbed. You're making Ochako seem like some money grubber. No, it's fine, guys. What she said isn't wrong. Although, I would have preferred if she chose her words differently, Ochako said, shooting the pink-skinned girl an annoyed look. Mina merely smirked before she clapped her hands together and bowed her head apologetically. Anyways, I know it sounds lame, especially when most of you probably have better reasons for wanting to become a pro hero. But my family runs a construction company and business has been pretty bad lately, so money has been really tight. I'd appreciate it if you guys didn't tell anyone else. There's nothing wrong with wanting a more comfortable lifestyle, Tsuyu said as she tilted her head a bit, locking eyes with Ochako. But with your quirk, couldn't you help cut costs? Right, that's what I told my dad, Ochako said, releasing a light sigh as she rested her head on her palm. But he told me that he'd rather I chase my own dreams than take my parents on a trip to Hawaii. Pausing for a moment, Ochako sniffled as she seemingly fought back tears. So, I will become a pro hero. I'll make good money, so that my mom and dad can have easier lives. It's a great dream, Ochako, wanting to help out your parents, Izuku said with a soft smile as he gently gripped Ochako's hands. And I'll help you out any way that I can. We all will, Ochako, Momo said with a smile of her own, the rest of her friends nodding in agreement. So, don't hesitate to lean on us for support. Thanks guys, that really means a lot, Ochako said with a beaming smile as wiped away a tear that had formed in the corner of her eye. Once she had regained her composure, Ochako stared at Momo for several moments. You know, Momo, we never asked you about how your date with Izuku went yesterday. That's right, Mina exclaimed, her eyes lighting up in excitement as she practically leapt across the table and plopped down right next to Momo. Tell us all about it. Don't leave out anything. Ugh, I was really hoping you guys had forgotten about that, Momo grumbled as she sighed and pinched the bridge of her nose. Do I really have to go over our date? Ochako told us all about her date with Izuku. It's only fair you do the same, Kyoka said with a smirk, resting her elbows on the table and leaning closer toward Momo. And don't even think about leaving out any of the dirty details. I have arrived to eat lunch. Each of the girls instantly tensed up when All Might suddenly showed up, dashing into the cafeteria. Izuku quirked an eyebrow when he saw All Might hold up a small, boxed lunch. Young Midoriya, would you care to join me? Sure thing, All Might, Izuku said as he excused himself and stood up from his seat. I'll see you guys later. Bye, Izuku, Mina exclaimed, waving energetically as she watched Izuku leave with All Might. However, as Izuku left with Japan's #1 hero, no one noticed that Todoroki was watching them intently. Once Izuku and All Might were out of sight, Mine grinned and turned her attention back to Momo. Okay girl, start talking. UA, University Staff Break Room. 1 hour, Izuku shouted in shock as he stared wide-eyed at All Might. Are you serious? Yes, my time limit is getting shorter every day it seems, All Might, now in his skinny form, said, pouring Izuku and himself some tea. I can barely maintain my muscle form for an hour. It's gotten that bad, Izuku muttered as he stared down at the floor, tightly gripping the legs of his pants. All Might, I'm so sore. There's no need to apologize, All Might exclaimed, cutting Izuku off as some blood spurted from the corners of his mouth. After wiping his mouth, All Might smiled at Izuku. Besides, if you and Mirko hadn't helped, I could be in even worse shape. You handled yourself well, young Midoriya. Despite his lowered head, All Might could tell that a small smile was on Izuku's face. But what I really want to talk to you about is the sports exhibition. I hate to darken the mood, but the time I've got left as the symbol of peace is quickly running out. I know, I've known for a long time now that day was coming, Izuku said in a saddened tone as he grit his teeth in frustration. I've been with All Might for so long, I thought he would be a hero forever, but seeing him now, he really doesn't have much left in him. I can see it in his eyes. Even if he won't admit it, he's tired and worn down. And among those with villainous intent, All Might, his vibrant blue eyes narrowing slightly as he stared at his successor. There are some who have started to realize that. Young Midoriya, I granted my power so that you may succeed, and eventually surpass me. This sports exhibition, it's an event where the whole country will be watching, and that means one thing for us. It's an opportunity we've long been waiting for. You, young Midoriya, the next All Might, the blooming symbol. I need you to tell the whole world, I am here. I know we've discussed situations like this in the past, Izuku said in a slightly confused tone as he quirked an eyebrow. But how exactly am I supposed to do that? You remember how the sports exhibition works, right? All Might asked, crossing his arms over his chest as a small smile spread across his face. We've watched them together plenty of times in the past. Ah, that was always fun, cheering on promising young heroes. Of course, I remember. The ones we went to watch in person were amazing. We saw some amazing matches, Izuku said as he leaned his head back and stared up at the ceiling, reminiscing on some of the quieter, quality time he had spent with All Might over the years. During the sports exhibition, members of the support, business, general studies, and hero courses are all grouped together. We're arranged by grade level and then compete in preliminary events. The winners of those events then move on to the main stage. It's sort of like a round-robin tournament for each grade level. Good. You do remember how the exhibition goes? All Might exclaimed excitedly, pointing at Izuku with both hands. This is your chance to gain some mass appeal and get your name out there. No more of that sneaky, vigilante work you've been doing. Heh, yeah, that's not a good way to stand out, Izuku said as he chuckled nervously, rubbing the back of his head. But you're right, All Might. I need to give the world a good first impression and show them what I can do. That's what I like to hear, All Might said with a smile as he reached over and gently patted Izuku's shoulder. Just use that passion and drive you've shown me over the years, and you'll definitely win over the crowd. You've been growing more confident over the past few months, young Midoriya. I know you'll do great. Several hours later, Class 1A. Ochako said in a confused tone, standing at the class doorway as she stared at a wall of students that were blocking the hall, all of them whispering and muttering amongst themselves. What the hell is going on here? They're obviously scouting out their competition, Bakugo replied as he shoved his hands into his pockets and approached the walls of people. We're the students who survived a villain attack. It makes sense they'd want a look before the sports exhibition. With his face twisting in annoyance, Bakugo fiercely glared at the students gathered in front of their classroom. But there's no point. Out of my damn way, roadblocks. Bakugo, Ida exclaimed in a frustrated tone, pushing up his glasses. Can we please ease up on the cursing and not call people we don't even know roadblocks? It's fine, he's right. We did come here to scope out the students who survived a villain attack. One student spoke up from the back of the crowd. Soon, the students began to separate, allowing a single person to walk to the front of the crowd. The student who had spoken up was a relatively tall young man with messy, indigo-colored hair that flared out in large tufts around his head. His eyes were purple with white pupils and were thin and somewhat triangular, pointing downward, with no visible eyelashes. He also had noticeable dark eye bags underneath his eyes. But geez, this guy sure is modest. The student's sarcastic tone caused Bakugo to grit his teeth in irritation. Are all the students in the hero course like this hothead? TCH. Bakugo scoffed as he glared fiercely at the indigo-haired student. You got something to say to me, ya goddamn cannon fodder. Come on, spit it out. That's enough, Ketchin, Izuku said, stepping in between Katsuki and the unknown student as he tried to de-escalate the situation. Bakugo looked momentarily surprised, seeing Izuku step up to mediate. There's no need to fight. Just calm down, please. Turning to face the unknown student, Izuku chuckled nervously and rubbed the back of his head. Sorry about that. Good to know at least some of you in the hero course have manners. The indigo-haired student teased, which caused a low growl to rumble in Bakugo's throat. But I gotta say, I'm a tad disappointed if this is what you guys have to offer. Those of us who didn't make the cut for the hero course were stuck in general studies or various other tracks. There's actually quite a lot of us, did you know that? Now locking eyes directly with Izuku, the unknown student took a step closer. Depending on the results of the exhibition, they might consider transferring us to the hero course, and I believe the opposite is possible for you all. So yes, I am scoping out my competition. For a general studies student like me, this'll be the perfect opportunity to knock you off your pedestal. So, consider this a declaration of war. This guy? Izuku thought, staring at the indigo-haired student in surprise. He's got guts. Hey, I'm from Class 1B right next door. The name's Tetsutetsu. Another student suddenly exclaimed as they pushed their way through the crowd. Tetsutetsu was a young man with chin-length, messy gray hair, which was rather peculiar in that it never seemed to move. He also had black eyes that were tilted dramatically inwards, each lined with a very thick, jagged, tan-colored substance, which was presumably his eyelashes. He didn't appear to have any notable eyebrows, and, like Ijiro Kirishima, he had rows of sharp, pointed teeth. I heard you guys fought some villains and wanted to find out more, but all I'm seeing is this arrogant bastard. Oh God, please no, Izuku thought, releasing a heavy sigh as he pinched the bridge of his nose. I can only deal with one Kachin. You better not make fools of the hero course at the exhibition, Tetsu shouted as he pointed at the students of Class 1A. However, to Izuku and everyone else's surprise, Bakugo didn't seem fazed by Tetsu's outburst. Instead, Bakugo merely rolled his eyes and began to force his way through the crowd of students. Oi, are you listening to me? Hey, Bakugo, where do you think you're going? Kirishima exclaimed, watching as Katsuki shoved his way past a few students. Thanks to you, everyone is all riled up. Not my problem, Bakugo said as he briefly glanced back at his classmates. I'm aiming for the top. Why should I care? TCH, Kirishima scoffed, watching Bakugo disappear into the crowd of students. Once Bakugo was out of sight, Kirishima released a light sigh and rubbed the back of his head. I'll give Bakugo one thing, his straightforwardness is pretty manly. Aiming for the top. Fumikage Tokoyami muttered as he stroked his chin. Tokoyami was a short young man with a head that resembled a black bird, possibly supposed to resemble that of a crow or a raven. He had a tan, yellowish beak, which was slightly hooked down at the end. He sported thin, red eyes with a small black pupil, one on each side of his head, and a red choker around his neck. Despite the appearance of his head, however, his body looked like an average human with relatively fair skin. He does have a point. Bah, don't fall for this bullshit, Kamakari grumbled, jabbing an annoyed finger toward the crowd of students outside their classroom. All he's doing is turning the other classes against us. Everyone has their own motivations for why they want to become a hero, and I have my own, Izuku thought, staring down at his hand for several moments before clenching it. I need to give it my all and show the world that All Might made the right choice, choosing me as his successor. What you thinking about, Izuku? Midoriya was pulled from his thoughts when he was suddenly glomped from behind. Looking back, he was met with Mina's smiling face. You had this serious look on your face. Oh, it's nothing, Mina. Just getting excited for the sports exhibition, Izuku said with a smile of his own, used to Mina's clingy and over-affectionate nature. So, what's up? Are you guys ready to leave? Actually, about the sports exhibition, Mina replied with a chuckle as her smile widened, her hold on Izuku tightening a bit. I already worked it out with the others. After the sports exhibition, you're going on a date with me next. 2 weeks later, outside of University. Ugh, this security checkpoint is taking forever. A reporter grumbled, impatiently tapping her foot as she huffed and crossed her arms. We've been stuck out here for almost 2 hours. Can you blame them for upping their security? They're on high alert after that villain attack, the reporter's cameraman said as he took a moment to inspect his camera. A ton of people were saying they should have just canceled the sports exhibition altogether. Ha, controversy means even higher ratings for us, the reporter exclaimed with a smirk, pumping her fist into the air, microphone in her hand. Moments later, fireworks began to go off near the stadium, where the exhibition would be held. And at the center of everything is Class 1A. Within University's grounds, the crowd was lively as the press and people who came simply to watch the exhibition bounced between food stalls. Everyone in attendance seemed to be bustling with energy as they made their way toward the stadium's entrance. Scattered amongst the crowds were several pro-heroes, there either to simply enjoy the event or scout potential prospects for their agencies. Most years, the third years are who you want to look out for because it's their last chance to show what they've got. But things are different this year. Everyone has their eyes on the first years, Kamui Wood said as he stared at the excited crowd, overhearing many of them discussing what they were excited to see. I would have liked to do some scouting of my own. What can you do? Death Arms said, shrugging his shoulders. Death Arms was a very tall, muscular man of a wide build with slightly tanned skin. He had a square jaw that jutted out a notable amount, with small eyes and short white hair spiked out behind his head. For his hero costume, he wore a large headband with a yellow and black striped caution pattern, matching his thick wrist guards and the belt around his waist. He also sported a square buckle with a triangular decoration in its center. He wore what looked to be a cyan-colored cardigan, which exposed his lower torso and the center of his pectorals, held onto his chest on each side by small metal nuts. His pants were a dark blue, with a white stripe down each side, and were slightly baggy on him, and his shoes were plain black with a simple design. They asked us to work as security detail. Looks like they called pro heroes from all over the country, Mount Lady said before she took a bit from one of her takoyaki. Poking her pick into another piece of takoyaki, Mount Lady looked at the stadium. It's been a while. I wonder if I'll see that Izuku kid. I heard he had gotten into Class 1A. Which is weird. I could have sworn he said that he had no quirk. I'll have to keep my eye on him. Inside the stadium, Class 1A prep room. Is everyone prepared? Ida exclaimed, bouncing around the room and checking in on each of his classmates. The event is about to begin. Boo, I wanted to wear my costume. Mina grumbled as she pouted and tugged on her jersey. These gym clothes are so boring. Costumes are not allowed, Ojiro said, his tail slowly moving back and forth behind him. It has to do with fairness. Everyone seems surprisingly calm, Izuku thought as he gazed around the room at his classmates. I guess they're all ready to give it their all. Midoriya. Izuku perked up a bit when he his name. Turning his head, Izuku quirked an eyebrow when he saw Todoroki approaching him. The other day when those villains attacked, you helped All Might and Mirko defeat that monster they had with them. You're strong, far stronger than you let on. Izuku fully turned around, now locking eyes with Todoroki. All Might clearly has his eye on you. I won't pry into why that is, but I will defeat you. Hey man, why are you trying to pick a fight now? Kirishima said as he walked over and placed a hand on Todoroki's shoulder. We're about to head out there. I don't really care, Todoroki said in a cold tone, shrugging off Kirishima's hand. I'm not going to try and pretend to be friends with you all. Todoroki, I'm not sure why you felt the need to tell me you'll beat me, Izuku said as he balled his fists, a burning determination flashing in his eyes. Todoroki was surprised when he saw a few cracks of green electricity spark around Izuku's body. You're clearly strong as well, but everyone, even students from the other courses, are aiming for the top. And there's no way I'm gonna let myself fall behind. I'm aiming for the top as well, with everything I've got. Okay, Todoroki said, before turning and walking away. However, Izuku could have sworn he saw a small smile on Todoroki's face as he turned around. Show me why All Might is so interested in you, Midoriya. Class 1A, an event official said as she poked her head into the room. With a sweet smile, the woman opened the door and stepped into the room. Everything is ready. If you'll follow me, I'll lead you all into the stadium. All of the students of Class 1A shared brief look before they followed the official out of the room. One by one, students silently exited, each of their faces filled with different emotions. Some looked stoic and confident, while others seemed nervous and anxious. Soon, Izuku was the last student left in the room, appearing to be in deep thought. After a few moments, Izuku exhaled and dashed out of the room, rejoining Ochako and the other girls. All Might wants me to tell the world that I'm here, Izuku thought, hearing the rumbling roar of the crowd as the students walked down the tunnel leading to the main stage. I'll give them a show they won't forget. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the time has finally arrived. The first years are about to walk onto the stage, Present Mike's booming voice echoed throughout the stadium, followed by thunderous cheers from the crowd. It's time for UA University's sports exhibition. The one time each year when our heroes to be compete in a relentless, epic battle. First up, you all know who I'm talking about. The stunning, rising stars who staved off a villain attack with their sheer willpower. The crowd's cheers were almost deafening as the students of Class 1A walked out into the stadium. It's Class A. Wow, this crowd is nuts, Izuku muttered, feeling a chill run down his spine as a sudden rush of anxiousness washed over him. I can barely hear myself think. And we're expected to put on our best performance in front of so many people, Ida said as he adjusted his glasses, appearing to be completely calm despite the rowdy crowd. I guess that's just one more skill we'll need to learn if we wish to become pro heroes. I think they're giving us a bit too much credit, Kirishima said with a nervous smile, basking in the crowd's cheers and applause. But we won't let a huge crowd like this shake us up, right, Bakugo? Nah, I'm good, Bakugo replied as he punched his fist into his palm. In fact, I'm getting even more pumped up. Following is Class B, its classes C, D, and E of General Studies. Slowly, the rest of the students participating in the exhibition began filtering into the stadium. And here comes the support course classes, F, G, and H. After them are students from the business course. TCH, they're wheeling us out here to make the students in the hero course look good. One of the students from the general studies course scoffed as he crossed his arms. Makes it hard for me to get excited. Students, let me have your attention. Hearing this sudden announcement, all of the students on the stage turned their attention toward where the voice was coming from. Turning around, they were surprised to see that the R-rated hero, Midnight, appeared to be one of the officials. It's now time for you all to pledge the athlete's oath. Several of the students began to mutter amongst themselves, many of the male students openly ogling and catcalling the seductive hero. All right, that's enough. Shut your traps. The student representative is, from Class 1A, Katsuki Bakugo. Kaken? Izuku muttered in a confused tone, watching as Bakugo approached the raised platform Midnight was standing on, seeming to be completely disinterested. I can only assume they picked him because he placed first in the entrance exam. Exhaling through his nose, Izuku noticed that several students didn't seem pleased that Bakugo was chosen. At least, he did come in first place for the combat portion of the exam, which were the only scores made public. But with the rescue points being added, I actually ended up beating him. TCH, you mean he got first place in the hero course entrance exam? Another student from the general studies course corrected Izuku in a frustrated tone as she rolled her eyes. Yeah, safe to say Kaken isn't exactly popular, Izuku thought, chuckling nervously and rubbing the back of his head. And that stunt he pulled a few weeks ago didn't help. Testing, is this damn thing on? Bakugo muttered in a bored tone as he tapped the microphone in front of him, his voice echoing throughout the stadium. All right, the athlete's oath. Shoving his hands into his pockets, Bakugo looked like he couldn't care less about the situation he was in. Pay attention, 'cause I'm only gonna say this one. I'm gonna take first place. You've done it now, Kaken, Izuku thought, releasing a heavy sigh and pinching the bridge of his nose. All around Izuku, the students from other classes were angrily shouting and cursing Bakugo's declaration. Why can't you surprise me and just be nice for once? Do you always have to turn everyone against you? Yell and scream all you want, it's not going to change anything, Bakugo said as he seemed to almost revel in the chastising he was receiving. You're all just stepping stones on my path anyway. Overconfident jackass, Tetsu growled, glaring fiercely at Bakugo as he walked off the stage. I'll be the one to put him on his ass. Overconfident, I don't know about that, Izuku thought as he watched Bakugo walk past him, not a word said between them. An uncharacteristically stern and serious look was on Bakugo's face which surprised Izuku. Normally, Kakin would be been smiling and taunting more. He's definitely pushing himself, telling himself that he can't lose. My, that speech was quite something, Midnight said in a perplexed tone, resting her hands on her hips. However, her spunky, energetic demeanor quickly returned as she gestured toward the large screen behind her. Now, without any delay, let's get the first event started. These will be the qualifiers. After this event, many of you poor babies will be sent home crying, and this year, the chosen event will be. All eyes were on the screen as it began to rapidly flash and shuffle through various events at a blistering pace. After nearly a minute of anticipation, the shuffling began to slow down, before eventually landing on the qualifying event. An obstacle course race. An obstacle race, Izuku muttered as he stroked his chin, his eyes narrowing slightly. It sounds simple enough, but there's bound to be some twists. This race will be between every member of the 11 participating classes. The course will be a 4-kilometer lap around the stadium itself. That's about 2.5 miles for our American viewers watching on TV. Midnight began to explain the event, the screen behind her showing the information as well. At UA University, we preach freedom in all things. Haha. So as long as you don't go off the course, anything is fair game. Now racers, head to the starting line and take your positions. 5 minutes later, obstacle race starting line. I need to tell the world that I am here. I can't let All Might down, Izuku thought as he stood near the center of the crowd of students, all of them eagerly waiting for the race to start. He had originally wanted to be with Ochako and the other girls when the race started, but they had quickly gotten separated in the huge crowd. Izuku found himself surrounded by a sea of unfamiliar faces, making him feel a bit more anxious. 4 kilometers is a piece of cake. I could probably cover that in under a minute if I used 70% of One for All. But if I used that much power, I could seriously hurt the other students. 20% should be good to start with. Then if I need to, I could always increase. Hey, look who it is. Izuku was pulled from his thoughts when he felt someone roughly smack his back. Yelping in surprise, Izuku whipped around and was surprised to see who had spoken to him. It was the orange-haired girl he had met during the entrance exam. Do you remember me? Itsuka Kendo, right? Izuku replied, causing Itsuka to smile and nod eagerly. Suddenly faced with the prospect of talking with essentially a stranger, Izuku felt his awkward, nervous energy skyrocket. So, what's up? Nothing really. I just saw you standing here looking all stoic, and I thought I'd say hi. Itsuka replied with a bright smile as she clasped her hands behind her back. Stepping closer, Itsuka leaned in and locked eyes with Izuku, causing his face to flush slightly. Hey, your class was attacked by a group of villains, right? Why, yes, we were. Izuku stuttered out, leaning back a bit, but Itsuka's smile only widened as she leaned in even closer. It was kind of a big deal. Everyone was talking about it. It sure was. Class 1 fended off a group of nasty villains that definitely got the school fired up, Itsuka said as she reached out and playfully poked Izuku's chest. But I heard some rumors about what really happened during that villain attack, rumors that you, Izuku Midoriya, fought with All Might and Mirko, and took out the big, bad monster those villains brought with them. IOL. Izuku began to stumble over his words as he nervously tapped his fingers together. Let's say that I did. Why are you bringing that up? Relax. This isn't an interrogation or anything, Itsuka said with a chuckle, enjoying how cute Izuku looked when he was nervous. Poking Izuku's chest, Itsuka turned around and began to walk away. If you really did fight that monster, I think that's pretty cool, and I'd love for you to tell me about it sometime. Let's catch up again later. Izuku, I'll be keeping an eye on you during this exhibition. Don't disappoint me. But since we decided to give this whole sharing thing a chance, I accepted that other girls are going to love you. Maybe even girls outside of Momo, Kyoka, and Mina. Now, I'm not saying start going after every girl you see. But if you feel that you have a special connection with a girl and think she may feel the same way, don't push her away. She may be willing to join this weird relationship we're trying. There's no way, right? Izuku thought as he watched Itsuka disappear into the crowd of students, hearing Ochako's words echo through his mind. But if she does, I won't push Itsuka away. Let's see how things play out. Alrighty students, the race is about to begin. Instantly, all the students perked up and turned their attention toward the starting gate when the announcement echoed out. Lights along the gate flashed, signaling the countdown to the race's start. The air amongst the students was tense as the lights flashed lower and lower, soon reaching the final light. Then, the final light flashed green, signaling the start of the race. Start. Watch me, all might, Izuku thought as the air around him began to crackle with green electricity, his eyes narrowing in determination. One for all, full cowling. Several of the students around Izuku were surprised when the air around them seemed to start buzzing. Then, in the blink of an eye, Izuku shot forward, leaping over the crowd of students and instantly taking the lead. All of the students around Izuku were knocked down by the small shockwave sent out by the force of his jump. Before the students at the front of the pack could even be shocked by Izuku's sudden shotgun start, he was already nearly a football field ahead of them. With a thud, Izuku landed back on the ground and instantly took off running, the other students just now starting after him. Back inside the stadium, within the luxury suites, several of University's teachers were closely watching the obstacle course race. But the teacher who was watching most intently was Mirko, her red eyes locked onto the screen showcasing the race. Her rabbit ears twitched slightly and a smirk spread across her face as she watched Izuku shoot past the starting line, getting an explosive start to the race. One of Mirko's powerful legs was rapidly tapping as she watched and analyzed Izuku's every movement. "Okay, kid," Rumi muttered under her breath, feeling her heart start to race as she felt a rush of excitement. "You're All Might's little prodigy, so show me what you've got." Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through What If Deku Got One for All and Had Harem. I hope you found it as intriguing and thought-provoking as we did. A big shout out to JTZ29 for crafting such a compelling story. Don't forget to check out their profile on fanfiction.net for more amazing works. The link is in the description below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to What If Deku 2 for more fascinating explorations into the world of fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we're always excited to hear your thoughts and suggestions in the comments section. See you guys in the next video.